Yeah, we're recording.
All right, everybody, we get started. Welcome to the April 23rd Planning Board meeting. We'll start with attendance, starting with Marty.
Marty, aye.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Patrick, aye.
Steve, I.
Bye. Okay, and Liz is not present tonight. So if we could all join me in the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on the agenda is Red Mill on the Charles. And the applicant has requested that this hearing be continued. But what I'd like to do is read the public notice. Marty, if you would mind reading that, and then we'll open the hearing and deal with it at that point.
Public hearing notice dated April 23rd, 2026, in accordance with the Town of Bellingham subdivision rules and regulations. 245-10 definitive plan and 240-54 stormwater management. The planning board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 23rd, 2026 at 7 p.m. in the Arcan meeting room in the municipal center. The applicant, Snowflake LLC, care of Kevin Lovisser, requests a major modification to the previously approved residential development overlay district special permit and definitive subdivision approval and stormwater management plan permit of the zoning bylaw. The modifications are focused on roadway alignment, lot configuration, stormwater management. The site consists of 85.6 plus or minus acres between Mill Street and Mechanic Street in Bellingham, shown on Assessor's Map 5113-1, Zone Suburban and Business 1. The plans were prepared by Ty Bond, 120 Front Street, Suite 700, Worcester, Mass. 01608. The applications and plans may be reviewed at the Planning and Zoning Office or Town Clerk Office in the Municipal Center, 10 Mechanic Street in Bellingham, Mass. during regular municipal business hours. For questions, please contact the Land Use Department at 508-657-2893, Bellingham Planning Board.
Thank you, Marty. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing on Red Mill on the Charles major modifications.
So moved.
A motion made by Marty, second by by Bill, and we'll start the vote with Marty.
Marty, aye.
Bill, aye.
Bill, I.
Patrick, aye.
Steve, I.
Okay, so apologize for having at this point. It's not a special permit at this point, so we'll hold up. So at this point, we've opened with a 4-0 opening. So Joe, do we have correspondence from the applicant?
Yes, we do.
So I believe they're looking for a continuance.
Correct. We have an email from project planner Allison Kosh requesting the public hearing be continued to the next available planning board meeting on May 14th. And so we have that email on file.
Okay, are they extending the decision deadline at this point?
No.
Okay. All right, so I would entertain a motion to continue to May 14th.
Is our calendar okay?
I do have a quick, yes. We need to check the calendar. That could be a busy night.
It most likely will be a busy night. However, my understanding is from Amy that it was something that was anticipated because of the April vacation, so she had built it into the calendar for that night anyways. I don't have a draft agenda on the other items that are slated for that night though.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. So I think it's probably gonna be a long night. So we've got the correspondence in hand. They've requested the 14th. So I would entertain them, we could entertain the motion to continue to the 14th. Do we have,
We made a bunch, some of,
and we moved it. So at this point, we take a vote to continue to May 14th.
Did we get a, well, do we get a second?
It was made by Bill. Marty.
I'll second it now.
Second it now.
I questioned whether we had enough availability. That was all.
Okay, so we've got that made by Bill, seconded by Marty, and we'll start the vote with Steve.
Eli.
Bill.
Bill on.
Bill, aye.
Marty, aye.
Okay, so that continuance is granted to the May 14th.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, I recommend that the members keep this book until the next meeting,
Yes.
so they don't have to republish it.
Yep, I would agree with that. Oh, good suggestion. All right, so apologize to any of the audience who's here for that particular meeting. So at this point, we'll go to our next agenda item, which is continued public hearing for 180 Payne Street. And entertain a motion to continue the meeting. Made by Bill, seconded by Steve. Steve?
Steve, aye.
Vote. Bill?
Yes,
Bill? Aye.
Marty, aye.
Okay, so now we're open. If the 180 crowd would like to join us at the table, great. We had quite a few open topics that were going on, and I understand that you've had some conversations with town staff. Would you like to tell us where you stand at this point?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board and all members of the public. Grateful to Mr. Layden and various staff members in the town over the past kind of 6 weeks. I think a lot's been accomplished, particularly in the discipline area. You know, kind of with each of these specific items. And I think tonight we're here primarily to discuss civil and stormwater follow-up, which I know the town's peer reviewer and our civil engineer have been working closely on. And I know town staff has been present for all of those working sessions. So I think John Cusich from Bowler, I think we'll touch on that. And I believe, I don't want to speak for the town, but I believe Pete is on from TEC, certainly here to participate in the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Pete, for joining us as well. Okay, if you'd like to take the floor, John.
Sure, certainly. Nice to see you all. For the record, John Cusick with Bowler. It's been a while since we had presented the civil stormwater application and details to you, but we went through that presentation a while back. We received comments from this board. I sent it out to peer review. We received peer review comments. TEC did a great job of looking at a very detailed review. We had gone through, prior to addressing those comments, we met with Pete, we met with Rob, just to review our approach to addressing the comments and the major concerns and how best to do that in an efficient manner, which I think helped out quite well to help the process move forward. We then submitted updated plans addressing that first peer review. That was submitted. And we have received comments back from TEC. I do not want to speak for Pete, but essentially, I think based on those upfront meetings, the comments that would come back now are what I'll call very much housekeeping in nature. They're very minor. The majority of the comments have been addressed. Really, what's left is just some small detailing or some clarifications or items like that. The biggest comment that was from the original submittal, and the board may recall, there was concern about groundwater on the property, just to make sure that the groundwater was deep enough to support the stormwater basins. If you recall at that hearing, I had presented that I think everything was fine. The issue really came down to the depth of the testing. The site has a lot of undulation. There were varied grades, and you can only dig so far with a backhoe. So we did what was needed based on the regulations. We dug test pits at every basin. We showed the materials, what it was made of, where groundwater was, but you couldn't get call it the deepest reading of groundwater with that methodology. So we reviewed that with Pete, reviewed that with Rob, came up with an approach to be able to address the town's concern to make sure that water was in fact low enough to be able to support the stormwater management system as designed. We did that, we submitted that information. And again, I don't want to speak for Pete, he can speak later, but essentially it showed that everything was in fact designed correctly. The water was deep enough and everything made sense. Pete did come back, I think rightfully so as well, and he said that since the testing was done in February, there's a chance the water could come up a little bit as the wetter months come, and asked if we provide some additional readings. At one of our original meetings before doing the work, we actually set wells so we could go back and measure them. We do have those readings. The geotech is providing that information. I have spoken with them. They said it doesn't change any of the results. Everything is still there. We do need to package that up. I don't want to take his word for it, and I'm sure you don't want to take my word for it. So we're going to provide that information. That's probably the biggest comment I think that Pete really has in here, just to close that loop out and just make sure all the documentation is there. Which we expect to probably have within a week or so, that they'll be able to package that up. At which point we'll clean these, I'll call it the minor housekeeping comments up and just provide it back to the board. But in summary, I think everything really has been addressed, short of just some minor comments as you expect on the second go around. I'm happy to go into more detail.
Actually, at this point, Pete, do you want to go through what you've gone through at this point in time, where you stand on this review?
So I think last time I was at a meeting, was after the first review, when we went through all the initial comments, which most of them did have to do with groundwater and the potential for the stormwater design being significantly within groundwater and whatnot. As John mentioned, you know, the initial groundwater data that was provided on the plans was based on excavated test pits, pretty much all of them 10 feet deep. They just called groundwater 10 feet just because that's kind of standard practice. But some of the design elements were deeper than that 10 feet. So our major concern at that time was that it would be in groundwater, potentially in groundwater. Like John said, they did some monitoring wells all throughout the site, coordinated with Rob and myself on placement of those. And pretty much all those monitoring wells came back when they measured them, and I think at the end of January, groundwater was around 20 feet or so. So it ended up taking basically alleviating all those comments that had to do with groundwater. You know, I think every system there now would meet 4 feet of separation to groundwater. But again, that, you know, our one remaining comment to groundwater was to take some more readings, just because groundwater typically comes up a little bit more from January to March, April. I don't expect it to be significant and you know, be back up at 10 feet. So I think most of those comments are pretty much taken care of, assuming that additional data that they provide indicates such. Otherwise, I would agree. There's, you know, any comment really remaining is more of a housekeeping, detailed kind of thing. If you want me, I can go through every comment, or just kind of go through and pick which ones I think might be more significant.
Might be worth you going through the significant ones that you feel are significant. at this-
Alright.
Do you have something to share that you'd like to share, or? You have a copy of the.
It would basically just be my most recent letter. I mean, I can share it if you want me to.
It might be useful for us, yes.
Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
Joe, can you enable screen sharing?
You'd accept being co-host and then you'll be able to screen share.
Do that.
And for the audience, there's larger, screens behind that might be more useful to see. The ones in front aren't big enough, so, well, the ones in front are good too.
We'll start top. So, obviously we went through zoning bylaws, site plan, special permit requirements, subdivision rules and regulations, stormwater regulations, Massachusetts stormwater standards. So we'll start zoning bylaw wise. Major, I mean, I guess we can just touch on the ones that might not be fully addressed. Architectural plans have the trash rooms. The site plans don't indicate it. It's a bylaw, whether the board needs them to be on the civil site plan versus architectural plans is kind of your discretion, I think. Signage. This is, I think, related to more so traffic signage. We had recommended, more signage for pedestrian crossings and whatnot. Majority of that was taken care of. A couple minor items left, just to ensure compliance with ADA and ProAg and whatnot, as far as ADA, but I think those are minor. Lighting plan looks good to us. Whether the lighting is adequate to the board, again, is up to you guys. But as far as what the bylaw requires for lighting, it looks like they're all set. Stormwater basin requiring fencing. I think we're recommending to adjust that fencing for better access around the basin. But the fence proposed is chain link. I defer to the board on whether they allow chain link or some other type of fencing. The road A seems to be adjusted per the bylaw for 8%. Bicycle racks, I think, look good. Again, deferring to the fire department for emergency access. In our opinion, it looks fine. They meet all the typical 24-foot aisle widths and access around all the buildings, but we would defer to the fire department. Again, back to sidewalks and accessibility. everything was improved based on original comments. This item, so detectable warning panels are not necessarily required in private developments per the Architectural Access Board. We just recommend using them everywhere just for better pedestrian safety, but that would be something that we would defer to the board on. They are required in the Payne Street right of way. And if Road A were ever to become a public road, subdivision road, they would also be required in Road A. But anything within the private development, there's really no law stating that detectable warning panels are required. We just recommend it.
I'd like
Crosswalk,
to come back to that later.
sure. Crosswalk, painting, just meeting MUTCD. I guess this would be one that you might want to discuss phasing, which, I think Bowler provided a good response for. It's phasing of the project will be determined on market conditions and timing of approvals, and it's a large project. At this time, no kind of phasing plan has been proposed, so that's just something to keep in mind that if this is approved, I think you'd want to condition receiving phasing plans prior to construction.
Yeah, it's something we typically do, so. Agreed. Thank you.
So the zoning bylaw requires this kind of development to meet subdivision rules and regs for interior roadways. We had a number of comments initially. It looks like a lot of them are good now. There's still some minor remaining stuff, which some of them might require waivers from the board. Test pits every 300 feet within the roadway. I think typically that would be done for, detection of ledge or high groundwater where subdrains may be required, or, if there's major fill concerns, but the Road A at least is in fill, like proposed fill, not inadequate materials. There's no ledge, groundwater's at 20 feet. They have a number of test pits throughout the site, number of groundwater monitoring wells. Whether they need to have a test pit every 300 feet, I don't necessarily think they do, but I think they'd probably require a waiver. Couple details. Again, a couple other waivers. I think we talked about just the profile of Payne Street at the intersection of Road A, just because of how the slope of Payne Street, it kind of makes, since Road A is 3 lanes at that intersection, one coming in, 2 going out, that northernmost right turn only lane has to meet that existing road profile, and it's steeper than that 4% maximum slope at the intersection. It's not really possible to fix that without reconstructing Payne Street. So again, likely needs a waiver. 3-to-1 slope. They have areas of 2-to-1, which again, we don't necessarily have a problem with. I think just want to ensure those 2-to-1 slopes are designed and stabilized properly. The water main, we would typically just defer to the water department. Anything water related, this is part of the subdivision regs that, they don't want dead end water mains. The water throughout the site is looped back to Road A. Just the water on Road A ends at a hydrant. whether the water department has an issue with that, we would defer to them. Again, sidewalks on both sides of Road A. There's no sidewalks on Payne Street on that side of the road, so it really doesn't make sense to have two sidewalks along Road A. But again, something that probably need a waiver for. Now into kind of general site plan kind of stuff. Again, ADA, this is all set parking wise, plenty of ADA compliant parking spaces. Snow storage areas, they added snow storage. Whether the board finds those areas provided adequate, they did add a good amount of snow storage areas. So, but we usually just recommend any kind of condition that if on-site snow storage areas are insufficient, any snow that has to be taken off-site be brought to a approved DEP snow disposal area. Minor detail regarding the ADA compliant construction detail. Signage, there's a lot of signs, traffic related signs as part of this. A lot of crosswalks, a lot of stop signs. We just typically like to see a sign table with the number of signs. It's also helpful for the contractor when they're ordering signs, making sure every sign that is called out gets installed. So the other, I guess, thing that's kind of remaining as far as stormwater, it's more of a general conveyance kind of issue between outfalls and pipe sizing. Bowler did, I'll refer to John, but they did do calculations on that. It's just that those calculations have not yet been submitted for review. Just because they didn't want to provide that information if there was going to be massive changes to the stormwater design. And then also going through conservation if any changes would have happened. So, they've said that they'll provide those when everything is fully agreed on, which I believe them. So, but certainly something that prior to construction would certainly want to be looked at just to confirm sizing of pipes and outfalls and whatnot. Minor detail with a drop inlet. Any modifications of the golf course we really didn't look at. There was one proposed pathway from the development back to the clubhouse, which might be more of a conservation issue. There's a small wetland that an existing cart path goes through. I think they're widening that path a little bit. So any changes to that might be more of a conservation issue. Again, construction details, they have a lot of construction details, but probably not everyone that will be needed for construction. So again, prior to construction, just finalizing that. Minor text issue with drainage. Minor labeling of, there's two different models of water quality treatment unit that it's not called out which one goes where. So they'll have to add that, but they did add some sizing to the report, but the plans just have to be updated. Again, this is the groundwater, recommending additional measurements. And then, as we go into summer, groundwater is going to go down. So whether additional measurements going forward are going to be too useful is unlikely, but would defer to the board if they want, continual groundwater monitor. It doesn't hurt, but continual groundwater monitoring, up until construction This is the big original comment about most of the systems being more than 10 feet in groundwater. But with, as I said, with the new groundwater levels, that's pretty much taken care of. Some pipe network stuff that, again, is minor in nature. Again, minor details to the emergency drawdown of stormwater systems, which can easily be changed. This is a minor detail regarding the construction detail for the subsurface systems. Massachusetts stormwater standards. So I think at this point, generally everything is met. No new untreated discharges. All the water is treated properly, sent to stone outfalls. It's just, we want to make sure that we look at the sizing of those outfalls prior to construction, make sure those are sized appropriately to prevent any kind of erosion. Peak flows, again, some minor stuff I think remains with the model. I don't think it's going to change the model or peak flow numbers. So generally, standard 2 is met. Groundwater recharge, they're providing much more groundwater recharge than is required. So, and with those test pits being, with the groundwater monitoring wells ensuring proper separation, standard 3 would be met. Water quality and TSS is, water quality units all over the place, along with groundwater infiltration. TSS removal and phosphorus removal is all set. Land use with higher potential loads. Again, this deals with water quality, which is met through those water quality units. Discharge critical areas just requires pretreatment and increased TSS removal, which is met. Construction period erosion control. So this is, this might fall more on conservation, but there's really minimal construction period, pollution control, erosion control, sediment control plans at this point. I think a lot of that will have to do with phasing, but it also has to do with the size of the project, needing coverage under the EPA construction general permit, having to put a SWIP together. All that stuff will have to be done prior to construction, which that, a copy of that should be provided to the board. But with a lot of, the eventual discharge of water, especially during construction, will be to resource areas. I would expect conservation might want additional details on that prior to permitting it, but I'd have to defer to them. But because that SWIP will qualify as a construction period erosion sedimentation control plan. So as long as that's provided prior to construction and coverage is received under the construction general permit, standard 8 would be met. Standard 9, they have a stormwater O&M plan, which looks good. Standard 10, those discharges, no problem there. And then some local stormwater regs. This is a very minor thing, but again, might require a waiver. TR 55 being basically the peak flow model that everybody bases designs off of, indicates the minimum time of concentration, which is the time it takes for a water drop to get from point A to point B, is 6 minutes. The town's rule is 5 minutes. Bowler has used 6 minutes, which changing from 6 to 5 would do nothing. It wouldn't affect the model. It wouldn't affect peak flow rates or compliance with any of these rules. Just more of a procedural thing, whether you want them to change everything to 5 minutes or if they want to request a waiver to do 6. But it's really nothing. Again, this is stormwater conveyance re-review for drainage pipes and swale sizing. This is back to test pits in a roadway. The subdivision rules and regs says 300 feet. The stormwater regs say 500 feet. Again, there's plenty of subsurface data, I think, provided where that wouldn't be necessary. But again, it might require a waiver. This, I think, is catch basin should be proposed with granite curb inlets or double grates. At this time, they're not proposed. I think, at a minimum, they should be proposed within road A. I think that the development itself is so flat. Curb inlets really aren't necessary. And then I know, they did, based on that conveyance sizing that we will re-review or should be re-reviewed, would determine whether a double inlet versus a single catch basin inlet is required. They probably already looked at that. It looks like they have nothing. Typically, it's a quarter of an acre to a single catch basin. So it looks like they've already looked at that. Minimum thing here. HDPE pipe per manufacturers indicate, a minimum of 12-inch cover for structural integrity of the pipe. The stormwater subdivision regs indicate 24 inches. Whether they want to change that to 24 or request a waiver, I'll defer to them. This one might, they even in their comment or their response might be more of a conservation issue. There's an existing catch basin on the golf course driveway, which comes down and just basically discharges across the street into a stream. The reg says that, no drain should discharge into a wetland without going to some kind of stormwater BMP. So I think trying to add some sort of water quality unit to increase water treatment there would be beneficial. Minor detail, and then a couple of minor additional things that we found, which again, I think goes back to just typos, text conflicts. Slight grading, visual error. The golf course pathway, a detail typo, and that's about it. So I think really, like John said, everything left is pretty minor with the exception of maybe potential additional groundwater monitoring, and then a review of basically the conveyance system to ensure pipe sizes are correct. I know they've already looked at it. They have 12-inch, 18-inch, 24-inch, 48-inch pipes. So they've obviously looked at what they need for pipe sizing. It's just that real flow data hasn't been provided yet for us to review.
Okay, thank you, Peter. At this point, I think I'd like to open up it to questions from the board.
Yeah, I have several. First of all, this is a private development. What's your speed limit going to be?
I honestly don't recall.
I'd like to see that as low as practical.
Yeah.
Because, people, it's gonna be new development and may take a while to get used to. I wouldn't, anything under 15 would be great. Number 12 for C. I agree with our consultant that we should have those panels in place. On item 13, I suspect that will probably take up half a future meeting on phasing. We really haven't gotten into great detail on that yet. I want to think, want to keep this as clean as possible during the build out, if and when it's approved. So I think we need to have a rather robust phasing program. I'm looking at number J under number 15. Is that where you made a comment, Peter? Well, let me step back for a moment. This is a very small town. We all know each other here. I know a lot of people in the audience. They know who we are. We talk often about the proposal. I keep hearing about the need to rebuild or refabricate Payne Street. And Peter, was it item J where you mentioned that Payne Street would have to be reconstructed under item 13? I'm sorry, 15. My ears perked up when you said the only way to resolve this is to reconstruct Payne Street. And I keep hearing that from a lot of people. Moving on. This is gonna be over 55. I will speak for myself. I'm over 55. And at night we don't see as well. I like to see somehow that the stop signs are illuminated. Either by solar or by lighting in front of them. I don't know if we've addressed the need for stop signs at car paths. That's going to be applicable. And then also we're putting a development in part of a golf course. Wouldn't surprise me down the road if some of the people, if and when this is approved, want to have their own golf cart. I wonder if we take into consideration the possibility of golf carts. As if you look, let me go back to 7 years ago, when the development was in front of us, and we were looking at 1.5-story triplexes all around the golf course. People had mentioned to me that they would probably purchase a golf cart, keep it in their driveway when they went out golfing in the golf course. That's one of the reasons I bought in the golf course. So I think that approach should be continued. Number 46. I agree with our consultant that these changes may have to be made. On number 46. Number 53. Land use with higher potential pollutant loads. How are we gonna test the stormwater up there? To know if somehow it's been polluted. You may have a lot of cars there. I'm not putting the blame on you. But the town we want to test that area out. And that will be private property. So we'll need some type of agreement with you to allow us to do, water testing. Again, not to blame you, but to just find out what we need to do if we have to correct anything. 63 and 64. I agree, potentially with the need to go to, larger storm pipes. And number 64, I think we spoke about it briefly. I agree, the conservation needs to look at it. But I firmly believe that's something that needs to be addressed. And Joe, with that, I'm done.
Patrick, are there concerns that you'd like to go through?
I have, no questions right now.
Stephen?
My only comment is this, there's a number of things that were mentioned that may require a waiver. And I'm speaking just for myself. When it comes to engineering, not my strong suit. So I typically relied on our town planner to help decipher some of this as we talked about waivers and what's needed. For me, before I ask questions, I would be more comfortable when the new town planner comes on, be able to go through some of this, because she should help identify some things about engineering that I may not know that is crucial in making a decision or asking questions. Because I don't want to ask questions on topics I don't know about. I'd rather be educated first, and we're missing a town planner right now. And for me, that was a vital piece of this part of it. So at this point, I don't have any questions, but I would like to sit with the planner when this planner starts to go over this. And
So I think one of the things, and I understand the comment, one of the things that I'd recommend, because when the new planner starts, they're gonna be inundated, but there is structure, I think, that we can provide to this process. So we had met the other day with not only Pete, but also with NECC's consultant. And one of the things that I identified, especially when you're dealing with significant number of pages with 68 odd comments, many of which then identify the potential need for waivers and supportive information. My recommendation would be that staff is working on basically what would eventually become part of a decision, but basically listing out the waivers and the conditions that Pete had identified, that there was a lot of agreement as far as when we had conversations, some elements like putting in a condition that final drainage plans need to be reviewed, because you don't know what could come out of the conservation review process. There's some recommendations as far as just exhibits and supportive information that could be supported as a condition. And there's certain waivers that for example, the test pits around 300 feet, providing that rationale, granting a waiver because you're in a fill situation where you're going to be filling 12 feet of material in this area. So there wouldn't be that need. Quantifying those things to provide that rationale to help facilitate that conversation, which ultimately would be the form of findings within your decision. So like if there was sort of like a thought as far as going through and starting to make decisions, I'd respectfully ask for the board to hold off so we can provide some structure for those conversations, and also make sure that we're reviewing with TEC, our peer consultant, to make sure that we're capturing what he is recommending. There's some elements that dealt with ADA that we had asked for some information from code compliance to say, because we're not accepting it as a street. If it was being accepted as a street, it would be a totally different issue. But within a private development, there may not be the need for them throughout the internal part of the development, but there may be high activity areas where it really makes sense. So, you know, on some of those comments, there may be a middle ground that we just need to work through. And, you know, spent about 45 minutes going through each and every one of these comments. And, you know, Pete did a great job, summarizing it for you. There was areas where he basically was in general compliance, general conformance, but with language like on the 3-to-1 to 2 versus 2-to-1 slopes. Didn't oppose to 2-to-1, but you want to make sure that it's constructed appropriately and that there's a detail. Those are things that would be ideal, to really call out in a succinct document to then really focus the decision, because scrolling through 20 pages.
No, but it gives the board a good idea of where we're going.
Exactly. And there's some other elements that, you know, we're still finalizing some discussions as far as mitigation for some of the other impacts that we're trying to finalize. We're meeting next week with staff to go over that to then provide for the board as well. I think there's general acknowledgement. There's a lot of focusing in on those key aspects, and you know, it'll be important to hear from the planning board what those are, so that we can you know, also work towards preparing a decision.
Marty, do you have,
Couple items, 15I, the 4% grading at the intersection, needing major modification, and as Billy had said, where does fire stand on that alone? I know you've been talking with the fire department about, we already resolved the 8% and 10%. What are their comments on Main Street? Because it's not adhering to requirements, and yet that's the major entrance into it. Were there any, through the discussions between them, what are their thoughts on it? Because, and then if it needed a major modification to the entryway, what does that do to the plan itself? I know you hypothetically look and go, all right, if we have to go to this. What does that then do to anything else within the stormwater? If it's a major modification, it kind of puts stormwater management, throws a curveball at it.
Yeah, and to answer your question on the fire, they've reviewed the grades. They were concerned with the 10% to 8. There was no concern with the intersection sloping grade. They're not here. I don't want to speak for them.
No,
It's not my conversation.
I know it's
Never
you guys have had inside conversations. That's why I'm just bringing it up in generality. We're not down to details yet of saying anything. I'm just seeing, has it been even addressed? 16, the ADA parking spaces per building. I'm definitely in agreement with that. It can't be just site-wide. It has to be per building. But that then brings into the other concern of the fire chief, was we didn't have ladder analysis of around the buildings of where the parking spots are, in terms of, can the ladders reach the buildings based upon the current plan? Has that been reviewed, and have you guys worked through that with him, making sure that the ladder trucks are going to meet it? Because again, if we start moving parking spots, stormwater management starts moving.
Yes, we did complete this. It's called the scrub analysis for the ladder reaching the building, and we submitted that to Chief Miller, and he had a couple questions about a couple locations, but otherwise he seemed satisfied. Again, I'm not speaking for him, but
I get it.
we did complete the study, and there were no issues that our consultant called up.
Okay. I believe it's number 34. I know it has to do with the widening of the current cart path area going up to the clubhouse, and I believe that was part of the fire entry. So with that in mind, what does that do with Concom? Because that's quite a widening from a 9-foot cart path for a golf cart for a fire truck. Has that started to be designed with inside of the plans yet?
So it's, I mean, it's designed and on the plans, as presented, we have not gone to the Conservation Commission yet. And that's kind of what we're saying, like, I suspect there's going to be some, I don't think they're just gonna say, great, stamp the plans, and, there's gonna be some back and forth as there was with this board. I don't see anything here that's not provable or any big issues necessarily. But we do have to go through that full process. That has not started.
Okay, and as Bill had mentioned about the phasing, I also agree with then on number 40, the continued monitoring of groundwater levels throughout construction, especially as you see things. I mean, we know you disturb one piece of land over here, you don't know it's disturbing, and all of a sudden it cause an effect on the other area. So I definitely agree that that needs to be a consideration as phasing goes on and as construction continues. Other than that, I had been reading through and I was waiting for Pete's comments, and I'll kind of reread after hearing him go through it. But those are my concerns.
Is there a sign plan right now, especially from Payne Street?
There's signs on the plans with labels. I think what Pete wanted was essentially a table that puts them all in one spot. So the information is there. I think he just wants everything put together into a signage table.
Yeah, I think we
That's
probably
fine,
need to have a
detail.
sign plan, a
Yeah.
plan with just the signs on it,
Yep.
especially from Main Street and what we're gonna see, because I imagine you're gonna have some sort of signage out there with that, so we'd like to see that. The ADA came up, and my thoughts on that are, this is a 55 and over. I think ADA is, certainly something that should be complied with. And, I'll be, very, very, interested to see what, that looks like. And of course, the phasing plan, we do phasing plans. Like, quite detailed phasing plans, so we want to see that, as well. So all the other comments that came up, of course, were significant. At this point, Joe, I think your point about, having staff continue to work with the applicant to come up with some plans to address these things that, there's major things we gotta work on, and there's minor things, and if this town staff is at the same point as Pete and from Tech, and I think we'd like to see a list of that, so just as you suggested. So that's certainly something going forward. We usually open up discussion with the audience. I know there's been a lot of conversation that we've had in the past. I'd be interested in new topics having to do with civil tonight and stormwater. If there's any questions from the crowd, I would have you raise your hand and I'll call on that person, and we'll make sure that those issues are addressed. Are there any questions from the audience at this point? Sir, if you could state your name and address.
Douglas Smith, 10 Janet Ave. I noticed the notice from the town that states about this hearing says 1,600 units. Now, my understanding is that we're supposed to be 800 units, 2 bedrooms, which would be 1,600 people, 1,600 vehicles, so forth. But if the town is making that as a mistake, that mistake can come back to bite you. Because if you're stating 1,600 units, and that's not the case, you can go to court, they can go to court and say, hey, look, the town has accepted 1,600 units. And you lose in the Massachusetts courts. That's my first.
I think that was the original notice.
I know that was the
You
notice,
guys-
but
you
it's
guys have
used
dropped
as the
it on
notice
it.
for this hearing.
It has to maintain that way.
You've
as we're
addressed
addressing the process.
You've addressed this. Could you mention how many units you're to the chair, please?
Yes, so it is, and I believe, and I'm not a technical expert, but I believe that our initial submission, which was about a year and a half ago, was 1,600 units. And so I believe that all notices pertaining to this project, because it's been continued since that original submission, continually continued, harken back to that original submission. We have revised the plans to 800 units. I can assure you those are fully documented. That's what's been reviewed by all the peer reviewers and presented to this board. And certainly anything that's incorporated into the record from here on forward is reflecting the 800 units.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It doesn't work in the Massachusetts courts. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, when the
having
decision,
had
when the
that-
decision comes down, it will quantify exactly the units.
My other comment is that if we're looking at runoff and we're looking at 1,600 people being in these units as a minimum, expensive 2-bedroom units. And you might want to think about how many people of those 1,600 people are going to go to work every day. So when we look at runoff, we have to look at runoff on Payne Street from the 1,600 vehicles that are potentially on that street, sitting there for hours, dripping on the ground. That's all.
Good point.
Are there any other concerns that we haven't addressed already? Sir, if you could state your name and your
My name is
address.
Peter
and your-
D'Amico. I live on, in the Bellingham development over here. And that's what this letters that we were sent, it talks about accepting Candlelight Lane, Northern Lights,
Yeah, that's enough, that's coming up into the future. That's another hearing that we have coming up.
So no item
That's
on the
coming
agenda.
up, that's next.
on the
it's
agenda.
Coming up on the agenda later, that's not this.
We haven't skipped over.
We haven't skipped it.
okay, I was concerned.
No,
because I
we
never heard
will
about
address
any
it.
golf course either.
We will address it, we will address that issue later. All right, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Excuse me, ma'am, go right ahead.
Diana Mendonca, 80 Elbow Street. So I'm in a butter of the golf course and I'm downhill of the proposed road. And we have a stream back there. So I'm curious, because I wasn't in all these meetings, the runoff of this water, where does it go into a pipe or does it go into the ground? That's what I'm curious about. Because if the runoff goes into the ground and I always have water behind my house, will that rise? I am in an 80 flood zone. My house literally sits on water. I can assure you that. If you want to come to my basement and see, you can come in. So where does that lead me I'm worried. Do you understand? So can they assure me that this is not going to affect the homes on Elbow Street so that we're not in underwater when all this drainage comes, because the road is literally coming down to behind our house? You're moving the road, the entrance, or supposedly they're moving the road, which is literally gonna be behind my house. So is that retention pond gonna be above me? I'm confused and I don't know. So if you could make that clear to me, that would be great. If you wanna come to my house, I welcome you. But I just want to understand the drainage. That's my concern. Because I do have water. I have a spring behind my house all year long. So I just like to know, is that gonna rise?
Pete, is that stream that you were talking about, is that the one near Elbow Street? The one that you were concerned about?
It's always running. The water's always running behind my house.
I didn't have any particular concern with the stream.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that that one of the original detention basins empties into a stream.
Right. So is that
That's,
behind my
so
house?
that, I guess
Well,
that's the
they-
concern that he mentioned earlier that
Yeah.
would need to be addressed.
Right? Because
Is that correct, Pete? Is that the?
So ultimately, every stormwater detention system proposed it'll infiltrate a certain amount of water into the ground. Anything over that amount will discharge through a outlet control structure, and then out, beyond the development, not directly into a stream, upland, but eventually will flow down into those resource areas that water currently goes to.
Exactly.
it's to me, because I'm not an engineer. You know what I'm saying? I don't have is that water gonna come downhill to me? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Ma'am, can I offer a suggestion?
Yes,
Do we catch your address?
80 Elbow.
What you may want to do is contact the developer. into conservation and try to get more detailed information from them. Perhaps I think you'd be willing to go down and visit her house.
Yes.
You can come down, you're more than welcome.
Sure, would be happy to.
Okay,
Will that address your concern?
yes,
Hopefully.
yes, it will, so that they can walk through my backyard and see how high my water level is.
And again, you'll be taking consideration adjoining neighbors.
For sure, and we've done that, we've walked through, you know, a handful of abutters yards as well, so would be grateful for the opportunity, and, we'll get your phone number.
Yes, please do. I would appreciate that.
Thank you for joining tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And also just through the chair, just for people in attendance. This work, because it does propose work within buffer areas around the wetlands, will require conservation's review and approval as well. So these areas, especially where I'm looking at the drainage basin that's near the brook that you're mentioning, that's all within resource areas, and there'll be a separate review process through conservation looking specifically at these areas as well.
If I could ask the applicant, are you running a concurrent meetings with the conservation?
Not at the moment, no,
Not
we
at the
wanted to
moment.
work with this board,
Okay,
but we certainly will, and we understand that's a key part of the process.
okay, thank you. Sir, your name and address again?
Rick Compano, 70 Elbow Street next door to her. I brought these concerns up many a meetings about the rise of the water back there in that stream. And it went underneath the carpet, now all of a sudden it's coming up, which is good. So I would like to have this guy come down and take a look at my house too.
Yeah.
So the reason we didn't get into great detail before, it was a stormwater issue. And we were doing 1 or 2 nights on stormwater. So I don't think we meant to ignore you. But there was a more appropriate meeting to have it discussed. And that was the meeting this evening. Excuse me from that, correctly, still chair.
Okay. All right, so at this point, we're probably looking to continue. And I know there's more information you need to get to tech. Sounded like it'd be a week or so before you could get that information over to tech. John, about a week or so,
Yeah.
with pretty much all the information they're requesting, or even.
Should be, yeah, we're just waiting on the geotech and a couple days on our end.
Okay. All right, so when are we looking to continue to?
So one of the things for the board, because there's a couple things to be mindful of. One, maintaining a quorum of the board for voting on an application. With the intended election, essentially changing that on June 2nd. From a staff perspective, you know, we're looking to finalize some things, and looking at your meeting minutes are the best sort of indication as far as what got continued to the 14th. I think, I know from my perspective, it would be helpful to be able to continue it to the 14th so we can put some of these things to bed and have this sort of discussion on what elements of a condition look like, so we can if we hit it, great. If not, we'll have to deal with it. But trying to pull something together by the end of the month, which is what the applicant is looking for. But also, we need to get a better understanding of all the things that maybe you may still view as outstanding. We have the list from peer review. You have the list from public safety, police, fire, DPW that we're pulling together. But if there's any other things, it would be helpful to get that, even if we spend half hour, 45 minutes on that, to solicit that input so we can come back for meeting, which would be then the 28th, to then try to wrap some of these things up. Looking at,
I think the last time we were talking with public safety, we had a situation where there was not a meeting of the minds as far as the metrics were concerned. Have we progressed as far as the chiefs and counts and things like that at this point? And I would ask you know, the applicant, and then I'm gonna ask Joe.
Sure, and I would certainly not want to speak for the chiefs. I think we certainly, we've had nearly weekly meetings directly with public safety to understand their concerns and make modifications accordingly. And so I think I can say, and you certainly should ask the chiefs, I believe we've reached, agreement or very near there too, based on, starting probably 6 weeks ago with weekly meetings. Got a lot of information from them, reflected that in our analysis, understood their concerns more. I think, as recently as yesterday, we're I know what you're referring to the meeting a couple of months ago, and I would say we've come a very, very long way from there, but I'll defer to Joe and the
Okay,
chiefs.
so we're working towards it, and
I think that there's general consensus that things have been addressed. It comes down to what does the language look like and how does it relate to the phasing side of it? When are there the trigger points? That's the final details that are being nailed down now. And we're meeting next week internally, and like it was stated, we've been meeting on a weekly basis, so I think we'll be able to come to the planning board for that 14th, just identifying, what we're looking for and how that may need to be codified as a condition, or even if it needed to be memorialized in a different legal fashion. An example is a memorandum of agreement. That would be a separate document that codifies things. So we're working on that language to make sure that in any sort of phase situation, we both sides know exactly what each is committing to.
No, I did have a question with regard to the fire chief and police chief. I haven't got an answer back yet, but I was curious to hear from them as to whether or not they feel if this project is approved, if their current resources are enough to cover the needs of a development like this, or if additional resources are needed. I really want to know that answer,
that would certainly be a topic for that night. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so your recommendation, Joe, is to continue to the 14th.
Yeah.
And if at that point is staff presenting or sharing with us.
14th to then follow up with the 2020.
Okay, I would love to continue to work towards this. 2 meetings close this up is tall order, but let's continue to work on it.
Right, and that's where it, from personal experience, coming into elections are always sort of challenging because it means you have to then re-advertise and all those things.
Yeah.
If it can be done, okay. If it can't, it's still okay. We'll deal with it. But if you rush too much, one, mistakes can happen, but also you have members of the planning board that you need to be comfortable with what is drafted. If it's not ready, it's not ready. Not gonna force an issue where a couple more weeks or a month may then address all those issues.
Considering the number of waivers we heard tonight, that should be probably part of the list of items as well. So there's a long list, and I think there were a couple from prior as well, and see whether the board's willing to move towards those waivers and what the town staff thinks. Move towards those waivers, I think would be important as well.
I think all parties have a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work.
And we appreciate everyone's ongoing time and attention. We really do.
I mean, the phasing issue sounds like it's becoming more and more. We all agree to that, but if the public safety is, so a phasing schedule of kind of how your best guess is probably very, very paramount at this point, because it dovetails into other items.
And I would actually say not guess. I would say something you feel comfortable with going with is probably what we would incorporate into any possible decision going forward. So I think that phasing plan is something that you can work on to get us in the right direction.
Just remind the board, we have a development on South Main Street that was originally presented to us by the Path Corporation. We took 3 or 4 meetings just on phasing.
Just on phasing alone, so.
It was rather comprehensive.
Of the Harmony project that's now.
And, you know, we learned a lot, and we're gonna take some of those lessons learned into this process.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was
Phasing's important.
very important for that.
Agreed. All right, so at this point, I think I would entertain a motion to continue to May 14th. Do we have a, it's a special permit, so we don't have a decision deadline. And you're looking to extend to the 14th, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, do we need to document that in writing?
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think the board.
I have one more question.
So while we document this, we'll entertain your question.
Okay.
And then, no, go ahead. I'm saying, stand up, your name one more time for the record, your address on Elbow Street.
I was just wondering if they're gonna upgrade at all, Payne Street. From what it is now to
I think
making
that,
it workable for this project. That's all that's the only, but I think I didn't hear nothing about that. I don't know when the meeting is gonna be about that.
so there will be concerns that are addressing that as well. I think we've talked about the lights and things like that through the streets already. Some of it has been addressed, all that. We'll continue to work towards it. So, at this point, I would take them, do we have about the document that?
We did.
Okay, so at this point, I would entertain a motion to continue to May 14th. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Marty. And we'll start the vote with Marty.
Marty, aye.
Bill, aye.
Go on.
Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Always nice when you get a phone number.
Organized for something.
Better not get swept.
I hope not.
Yeah, that was funny when I. Yes, I think.
All right, we'll give the room, we'll give the room a chance to filter out if they need to, and then we'll move on. So we'll continue we can take the conversations out into the hallway, that'd be great too.
That's why we really need, yeah.
Let's get 5 minutes. Okay, why don't we,
No.
Country club.
okay, Marty's already,
So now just maybe we'll.
yeah. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess for this, for a moment.
Any chance of modifying the order of the agenda?
I think.
And the reason I asked was, Bill gave away on there for approval.
I think what we're gonna do is keep it for right now, but we've got one more and then we'll get on to those topics. Sorry, sir. So. Okay. I'm gonna.
People here for. Yeah.
So. I'm gonna.
And that's what you.
Still paid.
Hey, we're actually, Bill stepped out.
Yeah, no, we passed at the door.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no. It's. Maybe it's just. Kind of see roll out.
Yeah, one of the whole.
Yeah, gotcha. No, as I'm thinking of my question, I'm like, that's probably better suited. It's nothing specific, it's just procedural, I think. I don't know. That was all. That folder's getting associated.
Give it a minute for Bill to get back. Look, Steve, bring something.
Yeah, that's right. So it's. I'm sure you want to change the name. Yeah, that's what we are, yeah. I'm interested in what you. So you can service this. Right, right. Eventually. Interesting.
Steve said that. Well, I guess during going through.
Very first meeting.
We want to move it. Now. Okay.
I can tell you. That means this is best.
So I see Steve coming back, so. All right, so at this point, we'll pick up the agenda again and we'll work towards the next item, which is the continued public hearing of Blackstone Street. As continued public hearing and when we ask the applicant to come up and take a vote to continue the public hearing. Steve, the motion to continue the public hearing.
Yep.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, made by Steve, second by Bill. Steve with the vote. Bill, aye.
Marty, I.
Okay, so that's up 4-0.
Sure.
And we have another document.
Sorry, just want to count to make sure.
Typically, we expect documents to come in
I just got it tonight, so you want me to provide stuff a week in advance, but you only give us the courtesy of the day of the meeting. It's not really fair at all.
All right, so you've received the document from April 17th then.
Yeah, I've received recently a peer review report from Bills and Thomas dated April 21st. And I received a one-page opinion from AP Law regarding the applicability of the subdivision rules and regulations.
Okay, so he asked us to go out and talk to our town council to see what their opinion was. We did that, we got it documented. We're providing it's no different than what the board was thinking at the time prior to our discussion. Our peer reviews actually was incorporating the same same direction that, town council gave, so.
So, and it-
Go, sir.
so what I passed out to you tonight is, and I've been through this many, many times, other communities. Quite frankly, I've read, KP Law's memorandum. I don't think town council has been given the full story relative to the existing way that's there. It seems to me that she's interpreted the fact that we were providing easements as a courtesy for future possibilities. It seems to me like thinks that we need those easements in order to build this roadway. That's not the case. What you'll see in the statute and in the case law that I presented tonight, we have the right to construct this way. It's an existing way. It's an approved A&R plan. She's not even aware that it's an approved A&R plan. I think whoever wrote her to seek this opinion did not give her the full scope of the situation. All I'll say is that as an A&R plan, by definition, it's not a subdivision. So we can agree to disagree, but it's not a subdivision. I provided half a dozen cases, provided you the statute on this chapter 185, 187, section 5, which gives us the right to build the road. Case law supports the fact that we have the right to install utilities, construct the roadway as necessary, including whatever's needed for passage through the street. If town council is referring to easements that weren't shown on the A&R plan relative to a cul-de-sac that's at the town line, we did that again as a courtesy to limit through street connection between Blackstone and Bellingham. If you wish us to remove that easement and other easements that are on the plan that are relative to future potential amenities that might want to be included, we're happy to remove those too. Keeping in mind that, an easement doesn't come before the planning board. An easement, we can put an easement on a plan anytime. Doesn't come to the planning board. It's what property owners do from time to time. All I'm suggesting is that we're not here for a subdivision. We're here for a stormwater management permit. Stormwater, which we believe we comply with your regulations, both Massachusetts stormwater guidelines and your zoning bylaw and your rules and regulations if they were to apply. So that's the only thing that's before the board is the stormwater permit. The development plan approval, again, it's in question, as to the applicability of that provision, since this is a development for single and two-family dwellings. And your first paragraph of that regulation says that it doesn't apply to single and two-family developments. Well, I'm not making this stuff up. These are your own regulations.
So I think you said earlier that you disagree with the interpretations.
What I'm saying is that I don't think that town council was given the full body of information. Like, I'd like to see what was actually asked of her to opine on. I don't think she was given the actual scope of the situation. In fact, she says in her letter, she wasn't even aware that this was an approved A&R plan. So I'll give you another shot at it if you want, but I'm pretty confident in I don't even need an attorney to delve into it. I'm not even gonna waste the money. It's pretty clear.
So what I'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to withdraw, and you can say no, both your stormwater plan, because that would have to be changed, but also the plan that you have in front of us as well. And I'm hearing you don't want to do that.
No, I think you should,
I heard you.
I think you should make a decision on the stormwater application that's been filed in front of you that you have a responsibility to do. And you can make your decision however you want on your development plan approval. If you want to make it, okay, you know, if you want to say that it's denied because you think that it requires subdivision approval, I say go for it. Because you're wasting your money.
So we got Pete for stormwater on this one as well, right?
No.
Bills and Thomas.
Bills and Thomas. Okay,
So the
so
board has the review. You know, they identified, their comments on, the revised information that was provided back on February 26th, I think it was. And they do identify some things that, had been addressed and no further comment. They do identify some things that would require, a waiver, again, referring to standards under the subdivision rules and regulations. They also identify, some, comments as far as how the methodology by which, stormwater calculations were addressed, or calculated. You know, quote, we reiterate the intent of our previous comment pending the submission of our reference final plans, and what they're talking about is, specifically on, the methodology for, drainage. Because they relied on rational method rather than, more updated modeling methodologies. But also, there was, reference for, what was it? The need for final plans, and it was a comment from the applicant's, engineer that, they would provide those at a later date. So that would have to be referenced within any sort of, decision as a condition.
Well, can I say something, Mr. Chairman? We continued this, we had that letter dated, the original Beals and Thomas letter is February something. We had our meeting in beginning of March. Yeah. So in 6 weeks, you couldn't get a report from Beals and Thomas earlier than April 21st that we would have had a chance to respond to? Do you think that is a fair way to handle the peer review? We're paying for a peer review to review it for the board. We don't expect something as I'm not even gonna use the word, 3 days before a hearing that took 6 weeks to produce this. 6 weeks. So we're prepared to comply with everything in this letter that relates to stormwater. We'll have a continuance, we'll present all the revised plans. We'll take all the easements off. I suggest you go back to your town council and explain to town council that whatever we told you really wasn't the truth, wasn't the story. Okay.
I don't know if this makes sense or not. If it doesn't, so be it. Does it make sense to have council present? Because otherwise it's gonna be,
well, I don't think there's any question about where the council stands. I think that documented this in writing, we provided the applicant. I don't think there's more information you want to provide. Is there more information you want to provide?
Have you read this?
Yes, I have, and it's the same issues that we've had on this since these kept coming up. Okay, so there's still things that we've been looking for that you don't think you need, that you don't feel are applicable because you have a different opinion on this. So I guess the question I have is there anything else you want to provide to this board?
We're gonna provide what Beals and Thomas has asked us to provide in terms of final plans. Because we just got this 3 days ago. You want information from us a week.
We got this evening.
Right, and I'm suggesting that you take that, because I just got town council's opinion this afternoon, even though it's dated the 17th. Why is that happening? You get something on the 17th, you should be writing it to the applicant. It's not fair. You shouldn't, it shouldn't take 6 weeks to get a document peer reviewed that is substantially reviewed previously. Why does it take 6 weeks? We agreed to continue this because the board had a busy agenda the last month, and you still do, and I understand
And you
that
had, and
completely.
you had just filed the last
Correct.
adjustment, and it was inside the week.
Yeah.
And then you wanted us to turn around within 10 days.
Because.
Excuse me, you, yes or no? Did you know?
Agreed.
I just want to make sure, because you're casting stones.
I'm not
to be
casting
careful.
stones, and so the proof is is on the dates. We continued the thing for 6 weeks, 6 weeks. You're trying to tell me in 6 weeks, you couldn't get somebody that we pay for to look at this plan and give us a comment letter in like a week before the meeting? 10 days before the meeting? What are we talking about here? This is ridiculous.
Let me ask the question, though, is there anything that's new on this thing? These are comments that have been going on for long periods of time, in my opinion.
And looking at these peer review comments, there's nothing
Nothing,
that is really substantial that couldn't be addressed within as a condition. Technically, because you have a bylaw that says you need to meet the standards of subdivision rules and regulation, I'm referring to development, plan review. Yeah, those are things that can be conditioned. And even, changing the methodology, that's identified that it's not a fatal flaw in the application, and it can be conditioned. I don't think any of these things were rose as far as what Beals and Thomas reviewed to a fatal flaw in the application that could not be addressed.
Okay.
So it becomes a question as far as, does it show up as a condition that these things be provided versus that you wait to have all those things. But that's like on the construction, the plan set, that's on the drainage set. You're not addressing the major component that town council addressed.
okay, we're not.
Addressing Beals and Thomas's comments don't cover, they're separate issues,
Understand.
civil.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can I just say something?
go ahead.
And for those of you who don't know, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, I chose not to seek reelection. I've been on this board for 12 years, was on another board in Bellingham for 12 years. I have 2 meetings left. I'll be damned if I'm gonna agree to a comment from an applicant that we gave information to our town council that was untruthful. That bothers me greatly.
All right, noted. All right, so what I'm hearing is that we could condition the stormwater in a decision. Okay. So at this point, you've already indicated that you do not want to take our offer up to withdraw without prejudice the plan.
No way, we're withdrawing anything.
Okay.
Let the judge decide.
And there would be, is there anything else that you'd like to add tonight?
No, I think what I heard from Mr. Layton is that you can condition both
Okay,
applications the way they're been presented.
all right, then what,
There's no subdivision application on the table. And so you have to act on both applications. And I didn't say it was untruthful. I said it was inaccurate.
You used the word untruthful.
let's leave it like that, okay? So at this point, then I would consider closing the public hearing at this point.
Your call.
So is there a motion on the table? So there's a motion to close the public hearing on both the plan and the stormwater.
Do we need to?
We will. And
Okay.
do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Steve. All right, is there any discussion? All right, so we've got a motion on the table to close both of these pieces. And we'll start the vote. It's Steve, I. Bill, I.
Marty, I.
Okay, so we've closed both of these two.
One question, Mr. Chairman, who are the voting members on this application? Do we have 5 or no?
We have 4.
And are you doing the Mullen rule?
And we've closed at this point.
I understand. Do we have the Mullen rule, and are we doing the Mullen rule for the absent member?
For Liz?
Yeah.
She's not here to vote, so we've taken a vote, we've closed 4-0.
Right, but you haven't decided, you haven't made a decision on
We
the
haven't
application.
made a decision, we've decided to close.
Right.
And we've got the, I believe we've got a continuance until the decision deadline's May 29th. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so we'll take that, we've closed the public hearing and, I think we should probably direct town staff to create a decision.
Yeah.
On both,
Under both.
under both a positive and a negative on both of those items. Can we take a vote? Can we take a vote?
Do we need separate decisions on each?
I think we should.
I agree.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to direct Joe to create a positive and a negative decision on both the stormwater and the development plan. Okay, made by Bill, seconded by? Seconded by Steve. And we'll start the vote with Steve.
Steve, I.
Bill, I.
Marty, I.
Okay, so that's 4-0. So we'll take that under advisement for the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can't wait to see the decision.
All right, next items on the. Actually, can I see if I can see a raising of the hands, how many people are here for the warrant articles?
Which one?
Well, there's 2 warrant, there's a couple warrant articles that are up, but there's also the Duhamel Way and Candlelight. And I think there's more for that. So can I see a raise of hands for the people that are here for the Duhamel Way street acceptance?
Just me.
Just 2. And then there's a second one for, and can I see a separate raise of hands for Candlelight?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the majority of what's here. So why don't we continue with we'll start by going down in order. I'm gonna propose that we go through the article for street acceptance for Duhamel Way first. And this is a public hearing, so I'm gonna ask for a motion to open the public hearing for the article for the street acceptance of Duhamel Way.
So
Okay, motion made by Bill, seconded by Marty. All,
Do we have to do any reading? We're open a public hearing. I'm asking.
we should probably do a public hearing reading. Could I have a volunteer to read the article for?
I'll volunteer, Marty.
Okay.
To see if the town will vote to, article for street acceptance, Duhamel Way. Public meeting. To see if the town will vote to accept as public ways the roadways known in Duhamel Way, associated easements and open space as heretofore laid out by the select board and shown on a plan entitled Duhamel Way as built, Bellingham, Mass, scale 40 feet to 1 inch, dated September 11, 2025, prepared by Colonial Engineering, Inc. for owner Plumtree Custom House, and a plan of land entitled Duhamel Way Acceptance Plan, Bellingham, Massachusetts. Scale 40 feet to 1 inch, dated September 11, 2025, prepared by Colonial Engineering, Inc. For owner Plumtree Custom Homes, copies of which are on file at the office of the town clerk, and further to authorize the select board to acquire, by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain, the fee to and/or April irritant tenant easements therein for the all purposes in which public ways are used in the town of Bellingham and such drainage, access, sewer, utility, and or other easements incidental or related thereto, or act or do anything related thereto.
Thank you, Marty. All right, so I'll accept a motion to open the public hearing. Marty, would you like to make that motion?
So
Made by Marty, seconded by Steve. Okay, I'm gonna start the vote with Marty.
yeah,
Bill, aye.
Bill,
Steve, I.
Okay, so we're now open. So Joe, do we have a process in place, and where do we stand with that process?
So, do we have any engineer or applicant on here on behalf of the developer, or is everyone just residents for Duhamel?
I am the single resident of Duhamel Way here tonight.
Okay, so you're here as
Yeah,
a
I'll
resident
do it.
versus,
My name is Charlie Feely,
Mhm.
4 Duhamel Way. I moved in February 14th of 2020 and worked with Rob Lucier extensively to get the warrant in place for the approval of this street. Unfortunately, in the meantime, as you're well aware, Rob has left Bellingham as an employee and is working for another company. I was hoping he would be here, but obviously he is not.
So one of the challenges is that we're trying to identify the final status as far as has the final checklist of all construction items relating to Duhamel been completed. Reached out to Steve with Colonial Engineering, who had been the point of contact with Rob to identify that we're trying to finalize the determination that this subdivision is indeed complete. And then have the planning board provide the recommendation to the select board. The select board has also, because we did not have a policy on street acceptance in place, recently adopted a policy that identifies what's needed for having a layout hearing. And I have not received a response from the developer, at least the developer that we have on record, as far as providing the layout plan, any associated easement language and documents. And that's sort of holding us up.
Okay, my understanding is we need an as-built, we need a title certification, copy of the deeds and other instruments that would go along with the
Correct.
streets, and then also the layout plan, right?
Correct.
So we haven't received that at this point.
I haven't received any, the only question that I received was, does this new policy apply to only new subdivisions or to older subdivisions? Because the layout policy, while it may be new, it's based in Mass General Law as far as the street acceptance process and the requirement that the select board hold a layout hearing for that layout hearing application to the planning board and DPW for comment. And then at a subsequent advertised public hearing, the planning board, the select board receives the planning board's comments that the subdivision is complete. We need legal documents for recording, and I don't have any of those instruments. We're still working in the office to try to request these from Colonial Engineering, and at least my understanding from Rob is that the builder who had still been involved with the project was basically handling things on behalf of the original developer. But things have essentially gone radio silent in the last month. So we don't have those necessary documents, and I don't have an as-built plan. So we're sort of left in this quandary as far as lack of materials for the board to take action. But the other thing is that we do have a second bite of the apple because believe it or not, while it's almost May, in another 4 months, we're opening up the warrant for a fall town meeting. That would give us a chance to have staff, and our new town planner will be starting on Monday, work to make sure we get all these documents and to make sure that the select board can actually hold a layout hearing. Because even if this board had said, we're fine with it, we've been working with Rob and the residents for a long time, we're fine with it. I don't have the exhibits to hold a layout hearing with the select board yet. And even if town meeting voted to accept it, if the select board does not hold a layout hearing, it's a fatal flaw, meaning that it's, even if town meeting votes to accept it, it's not accepted. And this case law that basically identifies, it's a requirement statute that you hold the layout hearing. And it's required for the layout hearing and the town meeting vote together are what accepts a street. So sort of stuck.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Can I ask them any questions too?
Yeah, we'll open it up in a minute. So, and with the board as well, but I think I'll ask one two first. Now, DPW does not have enough information. I'm asking this as a question, Joe. DPW does not have enough information to give input on this, or at this point. Is that correct? Like, there would be certain street criteria that, but they don't have enough information for that either, right?
Well, what we don't have is,
As-built.
I don't have the final as-built, and, you know, I'm part of this is having to recreate, and just identify exactly what we are missing. I don't know if an as-built was submitted that then resulted in a final checklist. I just don't have those documents. Yeah.
Do we know if there's still a bond on this project from the developer?
Amy would know what the outstanding bond is. So
There
I
might be something.
believe under policies by the board, you don't, when you're doing essentially the final release, you're still holding back, I think, 20% of the full bond amount until street acceptance.
Yeah,
That's what I believe your policy is.
I was just wondering whether the applicant, the developer would still have skin in the game at this point. It sounds like they do.
It may be a minor amount,
Some.
but that's something to review
Okay.
with. And, you know,
At the end of the day, typically what we would be doing is we'd be sending it to the select board with a recommendation to either that the planning board would, the right way, the phrasing is basically to recommend, not recommend, with no action. That's more or less the gist of this. Okay, so that just from procedure, okay.
Yeah.
Can I open it up to the board and then there's,
Procedurally, I agree that we should take no action. And at the night of the town meeting, it should be a pass over motion on the floor. Is that appropriate?
we would take no action here.
Yes.
right, I mean,
The
that's where
select board would
there's
be
a
able
separate process that, I mean, one,
The select board would be the one that would determine whether or not it to be passed over that.
because if we can't even hold a layout hearing, we
Yeah,
can't then
we can't.
statutorily proceed.
Okay.
The issue is that, and I'm looking through emails just to see if there is anything that I missed from Rob. If these things had been taken care of, and Rob was working directly with residents, as well as, the builder to resolve. I just don't have final sign-offs, and that's a challenge because he was working directly with them. but I don't have like the DPW director that says, you know what, we inspected all that and it's absolutely fine. So, there's just procedurally that was hoping to be coming into the planning board's meeting with a little bit more certainty as far as where Duhamel was. Which is why back in March, contacted the developer to say, we need these items.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it may be easier just to continue discussion on this to the 14th to see if we have anything and if we make any progress. And if we don't, then it's easy, we can't take any action because we can't certify this is complete.
Does May 14th give the select board enough time to do what they gotta do?
We would be scheduling the meeting on the 18th. For reviewing the layout, and if I don't get anything coming into the planning board meeting, I'm not getting anything for the select board.
Okay, so your recommendation is basically, we'll
Wait
listen
till you
we'll listen to
get
the resident.
Some of these things.
That's all. Continue, your recommendations continue to the 14th to see if we get any action.
Exactly.
Okay. Is any?
I also understand, I don't know if it was brought to your attention. There seems to be some still ponding of water there in recent months.
That's my understanding from one of the residents that during a storm, there's a low spot between driveways, where ponding is happening. The same thing's happening at another subdivision, that decided not to try to pursue acceptance at annual town meeting, and we're meeting with them, Eastland, regarding the other Harmony project. And we're working through some of those issues. So I may be mixing the two ponding situations together. But my understanding was there was one within this development, from an email that we received from a resident.
Okay. I did say that we'd listen to the resident. Unless there's anything.
My only question, if we get all the documents and we say yay, how long does the select board have to do a public notice, and it has to be like 2 weeks prior to them?
So statute doesn't require a public hearing. It just needs to be on a posted agenda.
Oh, okay, and it was just procedurally for my knowledge, that's all.
Yeah.
All right.
Man,
Your name again and
Charlie Feely, or
Mr. Feely. I know you've talked to Rob on this one.
Yeah, extensively. Rob and I have worked very closely. So I'm very surprised, Rob having told me that everything was in place for the street to be approved. He may not have known all of the actual logistics that need to occur. Who are you expecting the documentation from? Colonial Engineering? Plum Tree Custom LLC? Or are you not sure? You say you're missing documents, so.
So ideally, it would be the developer or their engineer providing those documents, specifically, when
It
you
would
would
be either Colonial or Plum Tree,
correct.
one or the other.
Either one, as long as someone provided that information.
Okay. And what documents are required? The as-built.
So we not only need the as-built, but we need a layout plan, that would be then, reviewed by the select board. We need the legal, deeds for the right-of-way, any easement areas. And also documentation. It basically is a, title confirmation that the developer has legal authority to, transfer, i.e. through street acceptance, the easement areas and the right-of-way to the town.
Okay. Don't believe the developer owns that property, the easements for the right of way.
They should have.
Is the original owner, which
For
would have been Larry Duhamel.
for easements, so specifically, very often, drainage, utility, easements, individual lot owners may own the land underneath, but then the developer is retaining easement rights, for not only putting in drainage or utilities, but then also for, future, say repairs or improvements that are needed. And those easements get transferred to the town so that if we accept a drainage area, we can actually go and maintain it. In instances where they do not retain that ownership of the easement, then it means we have to directly work with the property owners to secure easements, and that becomes a very lengthy and timely process that interferes with acceptance.
Okay, and none of that information is available on the GIS maps?
No, because the easement languages would all be recorded at the registry of deeds, but that would be what, let's say you had a drainage easement on your property when you bought it. Your property in the deed, it would say there's a drainage easement that is to be retained by Duhamel Development Corp. For the purpose of this. That is how it gets memorialized, that there's an easement. Ultimately, Duhamel would transfer that to the town at street acceptance. But if you didn't have it, but there was a drainage basin on there, there would be no mechanism for the town to accept the layout and then maintain that drainage area.
Okay.
So
There is some ponding on the street. It's between two houses, which Rob is well aware of, and have been working on that. I don't know where that ended up. Him leaving was a surprise. To the best of my knowledge, there is still a bond, the original bond. And the development originally goes back to like 2008.
right.
And the original developer was unable to finish the work. Plumtree Custom bought it. My understanding, one lot at a time, as he had someone that he could build a house for and sell it.
And that's where, if we're running into issues that there are final construction related issues that, and there's no responsible party, there is a path forward, i.e. the planning board basically calling the remaining bond. You know, we're able to then make sure that the work gets done and then, basically handle that other side of it, as far as street acceptance. But with some of and I don't necessarily think that they're all minor issues, but it's enough that realistically is gonna delay our ability to accept without these legal documents. Again, like I said, because the one absolutely required step with the select board, I won't have anything for them to review and approve.
So Joe, if there's work that needs to be done by the developer, is there a certain time frame that they have to complete that?
I don't believe there's any work that needs to be done. I think that it sounds like.
If there's like construction, if there's ponding that was deemed, say, an issue that really need to be resolved before having the roadway accepted by the town.
Right.
That's where, you know, hopefully the developer would be able to do it for short money to get the bond back, or the town is calling the bond, using that to do the work, or hold on to it to make sure that, you know, we can, it doesn't create other issues. But, you know, there's some stuff that I'll have to follow up with Rob on, just because in the record, I just don't have it. And there may be some brainstorming we can do to try to fill some of these gaps.
Okay, so I'm hearing a recommendation that we continue to May 14th.
Yeah.
On this topic. See if we can get some of these documents
Right.
that we need.
My understanding, and some of this is just general background. There's 6 houses, small cul-de-sac. Don't know if anybody knows where it is. When you're on Washington Street, coming into Bellingham, it's the first right as soon as you get into Bellingham.
I drove up there to see what it was. When I saw
Okay.
it on the
Yeah,
agenda.
okay.
It's a nice development,
Yeah, it is. It's a very nice development.
absolutely.
My understanding, right, wrong, or indifferent from what we've been told, is that the builder still has at least some skin in the game, because until the street is approved by the town, he would be responsible, for instance, plowing snow. The right, wrong, or indifferent part is, I was told that if he chose for whatever reason not to plow, that the town would have to plow because you have to be able to get emergency vehicles to the houses. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
we've been going through this for like 6 years.
Yeah.
To find out now that you don't even have the documentation.
And again, that's, you know, what,
And I don't want to tie up all of these
Can,
people.
can we send another, reminder to the contacts to try to
Yep.
shake that loose again? And we'll, what I'd like to do is continue it to our next
Yeah,
meeting.
that's fine, because the
See if we
builder
can-
actually built one of the houses, moved in, has since sold it, and is now building another house right off of Pulaski.
About a half a mile down, if that,
Bingo.
inside.
Okay. All right,
I was
that
wondering-
was not on our agenda. Yeah, that one's not on our agenda, but anyway, all right, so at this point, what I would do is entertain a motion to continue to May 14th.
So moved.
Made by Marty, seconded by Bill.
Yep.
Vote. Marty?
Marty, I.
Bill, aye.
Go on.
Steve? Yeah, so that passes 4-0 to continue to the 14th. And
Anybody mind if I call my buddy Rob?
if you have his number,
I have his number, you've got to believe it.
just so if he gave you the work cell, that cell is in the planning department.
Yeah. So. Yeah, and again, we'll try to reach out.
Yeah.
To see if we can
I'll hunt him.
shake it loose too.
Thank you.
And it, okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, so. Continue that, May 14th. All right. So why don't we move on to the next one? So this is the next item on the agenda would be the article for street acceptance, Candlelight Lane, Northern Light Lane, Celeste Circle, and Lovers Lane. And if I get a volunteer to read the public hearing.
I'll do it.
You'll do it?
Public hearing notice, article for street acceptance, Candlelight Lane, Northern Lights Way, Celestial Circle, and Lovers Lane. To see if the town will vote to accept as public ways the roadways known as Candlelight Lane, Northern Lights Way, Celestial Circle, and Lovers Lane, associated easements and open space parcels A, B, and C as heretofore laid by the select board as shown on the plan entitled Street Acceptance Plan, Candlelight Lane and Northern Lights Way, Bellingham, Massachusetts, scale 40 feet to 1 inch, dated August 26, 2022, prepared by Gourier and Halanon, Incorporated Engineering and Land Survey for owner South Street, Central Realty LLC, and on the plan of land entitled Street Acceptance Plan, Celestial Circle and Lovers Lane, Bellingham, Mass, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet, date September 29th, 2023, prepared by Gourier and Halanon, Incorporated Engineering and Land Surveying for owner South Center Realty LLC, copies of which are on file at the office of the town clerk, and further to authorize the select board to acquire by purchase, gift, and or eminent domain the fee to and or appurtenant tenant easements therein for all purposes for which public ways are used in the town of Bellingham and such drainage, access, sewer, utility, and other easements incidental or related thereto, or act or do anything related thereto.
All right, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
The second. Okay, so, and we've got a motion on the table right now to open the public meeting.
Marty, aye.
Aye.
Bill, I. Steve, I. So that's 4-0. We're open, and you've taken the table, so if you could introduce yourself, and it sounds like are you representing the community?
Yeah.
And
No, my name is Angela Conforti. I represent South Center Realty, the developer, the applicant of this street acceptance application.
that's okay. All right, and the floor is yours. Let's hear it.
So this is a 100 lot development. It was permitted and developed under a comprehensive permit through the zoning board. So this board was spared from the gory details of the last 15 years of development. I'm sure you're aware of Lakeview Estates. The development's been done for some time. I would say the as-built were originally drafted in 2023, revised a couple of times over the years, but for the most part, it was done in 2023. Some remaining punch list items have been taken care of over the next couple of years. And DPW has confirmed, at least verbally to us, that all the punch list items are done at this time. I'm hoping that similar confirmation was given to Joe recently as well. The only outstanding item in the development right now is there is a private drain line. It's takes groundwater and some foundation drainage across Northern Lights Way. This pipe it's buried, oh, don't quote me, something like 12 feet under Northern Lights Way, and it was discovered by current Fafford personnel with the Conservation Commission and our stormwater consultant in 2024, I believe early 2024. We discovered the outlet to this pipe in an isolated wetland area in one of the open space areas.
Do you represent Fafford as well?
Yeah, that's South Center Realty is the Fafford.
That's
company.
Fafford.
Yeah.
So that's you guys.
Yes.
So this project is the one that you guys have been on for how long?
The comprehensive permit, I think, is dated 2011.
Okay, this is
Yeah.
the first time it's been in front of the planning board.
Yes.
Okay,
So, like I said, you guys have been spared for most of this time, but here I am.
okay. We had another project come in front of us
Mhm.
that was eventually sold off to another developer. We had, in the public hearing, we had lots of people that came out and had wanted to give us lots of testimony, which we really couldn't take because we had to focus on the project that was in front of the planning board. But there was enough scuttlebutt that we knew that there was an issue over there, but we weren't allowed to take a look at it with the project we had in front of us.
Right.
This is the same project.
Yep, the same project. It did have a history of drainage issues early on.
Flooding neighbors'
Yep,
basements.
on Silver Lake Road. And then there was a modification plan done probably around 2021 or 2022, somewhere around there. And a second outlet pipe was added from the drainage basin that was flooding the homes on Silver Lake Road. So there's now adequate outlet, I guess, because we haven't had any
That
filling
pipe-
over of that
pipe wasn't
basin.
on any of the plans.
I'm sorry?
That pipe wasn't on any of the plans.
There-
that were
There was
provided?
one pipe on the plans and then that, I guess that pipe was too, so I'm not an engineer, I'm sorry, I'm an attorney. That pipe was too small, the basin wasn't draining quickly enough. It spilled over the side of the contents of the basin spilled over the side of the basin and flooded homes on Silver Lake Road. Yeah, I don't know how many times, but more than a couple of times. So, but since that second outlet pipe was added, we haven't had any incidences of that basin overflowing or in any homes getting flooded on Silver Lake Road. So,
So a question, so the pipe that you referred to that's roughly 12 feet under, that comes out in an open wetland area,
mhm.
is there something that has to be done with that now?
So because it's a private drain line that crosses what is proposed to be a public way, town council weighed in and asked us to discontinue use of that pipe. So it's, like I said, it's a private, it's foundation drainage, groundwater. It doesn't require a formal application or approval from a board or commission. However, we have submitted a plan to discontinue use of that pipe and redirect that drainage elsewhere to Joe and DPW and TEC for their review as a courtesy. We are prepared to undertake that work and cap that pipe prior to town meeting. Even prior to a layout hearing that the select board might hold. We're just kind of waiting for the thumbs up from the town, if we can get that approval to do that soon.
So this is the first time it's in front of us.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask the question. So where's the pipe from?
It is from, there's a sewer line, it's part of this project, Fafford constructed, like a couple miles of sewer line, at least a mile of sewer line. They built a pump station on Cross Street. I want to say they built another pump station or installed sewer along Douglas Drive. They did a lot of sewer mitigation as part of this project. So there's a sewer line that runs behind some lots on Northern Lights Way. And then there's some foundation drains on Northern Lights Way that all contribute drainage to this pipe. And then it runs across Northern Lights Way, like I said, under the street into that isolated wetland in the middle of Cannon Lane.
So they're gonna redirect it, but I guess my question is, that should be rectified before acceptance.
Yes,
So my only question, and I'm just wanna understand, so why are we going through this now if that should be rectified before we move this thing forward?
So we started that project in September of last year, capping that pipe and redirecting the drainage. There was some opposition at the time to that work. Yes, the Joe's plan now. And the town asked to review that plan. Rob and others asked to review our plan for what we were doing to discontinue use of that pipe. And then we had to rework the plan a little bit. And now, I mean, we're ready to put shovels in the ground. Like I said, we're just kind of working with DPW on TEC on the best approach to do that.
So Joe, let me ask the question. We have documents that we need.
So we're getting there. So Angela has submitted to the select board necessary documents to hold the layout hearing, legal descriptions, plans. This is, say, the one outstanding issue because this drain pipe, there's no easement underneath the roadway. And it goes to that center conservation area that, yes, it is receiving water from other properties. But this is a drain line that was never approved. And we're in the process of reviewing this proposal. About 10 days ago, we met out at the site, walked around to identify exactly what was happening. On the screen, you see the dark line, which is the drain line that is just above lot 1 and is on lots 59 and 58. They identify where they're going to be capping it. They also identify, and it's sort of in a up and down fashion. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is. This is the proposed, this is the existing 20-foot wide sewer easement. And they're proposing 2 catch basin, basically dry wells that capture some of the flow coming from some of these foundation drains. And then they're proposing that they utilize essentially the gravel bed to the sewer line as the transport mechanism to bring that any groundwater out of the development. So it's sort of happening now. Because that's what that drain line that goes under the street, just off the plan, it does have water. We were out there and we saw, there's a good amount of water. It's not blowing out like a hydrant, but there's definitely flow. And that is basically providing a relief for the water that is being transported along that sewer trench. So where we are right now, and I asked Pete to stay on, so that he can provide comments, to the board. Right now, we're evaluating their proposal for this, and just yesterday, and I'm gonna just switch documents. We received a, let's see where I have it. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Here again. We received a letter from Commonwealth Design LLC on the 21st that provided it more of a narrative to support their perspective on this, utilizing this drain line. I don't know if Pete's had a chance to take a look at this yet, but this is sort of the sticking point that we're trying to get some level of understanding and also identify what the other options are, because while this letter identifies that this condition as far as groundwater transporting along this sewer trench has been going on, for like 15 years since things have been built. One of the concerns that staff has, DPW staff as well as engineer, is this is, we would be accepting the sewer line. And that if there's any additional water that is within that trench, what is the potential for future damage to that sewer line, either through infiltration, or if there's a potential for any sort of sagging that causes strain on that sewer line and then a crack. So we're currently evaluating this, and Pete, I don't know if you had a chance or have an opportunity to just provide some comments on some of the things we're working through.
So I haven't seen this document, but I, assume it's basically, like you said, an overview of that proposal. Basically, from my perspective, the proposal is to reconvey groundwater into basically the stone bedding under the sewer line, and have the sewer line act as a conveyance to basically drain off groundwater, which, granted, sewer lines, the reason they're built on stone is so that water does pass through them. I don't believe it's the best practice to convey additional water to that trench than there already would be through just typical groundwater. And I know Jesse had the same kind of opinion on that, just due to infiltration or potential migration of the bedding material or anything else like that, which could damage the sewer, which then, the town would obviously be liable for if it was accepted that way. It is a difficult site where this connection is. It's flat, but there are, I did go through kind of the as-built in this proposal. There was a number of items that I saw. It appears to me as though this could be tied into the drainage network, which is in everybody's best interest. It looks like elevations from what I see on the as-built plan and on the proposed plan with inverts of pipes that there's two catch basins and a couple manholes on Northern Lights Way that these could be tied into. It's obviously probably more work than just creating a dry well and redirecting that water, but I mean, this pipe is also not only taking groundwater, there is a catch basin that there's an area drain and a catch basin that basically you're taking overflow from the stormwater system. So not only would you be conveying groundwater into the sewer trench, you're conveying stormwater, which is probably not a good idea. Is it a ton of water? Groundwater wise, when we were out there, no. But as soon as you start putting stormwater in there, I could see issues with it. From my discussion with Jesse, I didn't get the feeling that he was comfortable with it. And I think there's a better way to alleviate that issue by trying to tie this into the drainage network, whether gravity allows for it, which from review of those plans, it looks like it does. Unless those elevations are incorrect on the as-built plans and in the design plan they provided. But alternatively, these homes could be equipped with some sump pumps that discharge into the drainage network.
All right, thank you, Peter. All right, and we've heard from
One other thing, I just want to basically for not only the board, but also for, people in the audience, from a staff standpoint, we have a full appreciation as far as how the residents have been living through situations. This is not the first time the street has been on the warrant for acceptance. I think right now we have a good working relationship with Angela and her engineering team to try to finalize that detail. Those details associated with this pipe and identifying the best way, because ultimately when town meeting is asked to accept a street, the town wants to make sure that it's not accepting anything with a liability. That a situation where potentially if there's concern from DPW director and our peer consultant that we could be putting a sewer line at risk. That's a significant issue for me as town official. Mainly because I don't want to have to be any sort of damage, even if it's 20 years down the road. We have sewer systems that are 50, 60 years old and are still working. I don't want to have the residents go through anything like that. I don't want to have the taxpayers have to pay for things like that. At the same time, we do recognize that there is a cost that the existing homeowners have been paying and was expressed to Rob and I in a public meeting that Rob coordinated back in January regarding the status of this development, regarding the status for street acceptance, and that residents are and continue and have been paying a significant amount of money in the form of association fees to cover maintenance of the development that would be transferred to the town should the street be accepted by town meeting. So we're trying to work out these issues to give the town officials a sense of comfort that when we're asked on town meeting floor, what's the recommendation from the DPW director? We don't want the DPW director saying, I still don't feel good. We need to know that it's with a level of certainty that this is a solution that works. I understand there's other private issues between the developer and residents with the construction of those units. We have limited ability to influence those sorts of resolution of issues. but we may need participation of some of the residents depending on the outcomes. If the most logical thing to tie into a drainage system means putting an easement in place. We're still working through those issues. I'm not saying that's on the table, but you know, if that's something that's needed to sort of make sure that we can accept the road with some level of certainty that we're not welcoming at some future date a liability, costly liability. Want to make sure we can work through those issues with Angela and her engineering team.
Okay, so Angela represents Fafford. And I think we ought to open it up to the residents a little bit. And I would like to, and if you could identify yourself.
Yeah.
We're gonna actually group topics because I think there's a lot of news here. There's probably there could be a couple interests, but I definitely want to hear from your residents because she represents Fafford. Sir, you can
Yes.
identify yourself and your address, please.
Tom Wilson, 26 Candlelight Lane. I am the biggest, this hit of you, I want this corrected. I have offered an easement to them to go and do something like a drain thing at the bottom of the, because there's a difference in grade. I don't want my house dug up, but I want to be able to put a fence up, 5 years, paying property taxes. And I've been complaining about this. It took 3 years for them to find out and discovery of that pipe. 3 years. I'll show you some pictures. And I'm offering them easement to do something on that, you know, plugging up the thing. I would have done that a long time ago, let the phones ring, you know, but that wouldn't be fair.
Okay, so you've been complaining about this for 3
Yes,
years.
can I just say one thing? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I've had, my foundation is cracked to smithereens. I had, Groundworks come out and give me, inspect my foundation. My land is my property is saturated because I sit directly across from where that pipe comes out and everything comes out. And, please don't stop me because, I know I lose my train of thought, but, I've been I've offered them easement there was talk about a berm, but the trees are falling like crazy because it's saturated back there. It's just, first of all, their engineering firm, same building. They share the same address. I question a lot of things. I offered to give an easement so they can do it on one side of my house, which is the lowest side, and their engineer said, Angela said at one of the meetings, I have them all, that, oh no, how about on this side? He goes, no, that's too high. So I left that meeting, the conservation meeting, agreeing verbally to say, I will grant an easement to put a drain and tap into that. And when I got it and I opened it up, it was for the side that said was too high because they know they wouldn't take it. They don't want to spend the money to do that. I have $28,000 estimate to repair my basement. It's all cracked. It's his quote, you're sitting in a mud bowl. I bought an affordable unit. It just so happens that was the last unit built in phase 2. I wonder why they waited that long. So, you know, to be able to get this piece in there and, you know, stayed out of town. Now they're trying to dissolve. If you have any chance of retaining their bond, I'm still willing to work. I do not like them. I have no use for them. But for my family, I have a dog. I got a dog. I can't put a fence up my house. You know, and that's what I want to be able to do this year. I'll offer an easement with conditions. They level and seed my property. That's all I ask. They don't want to do that. And I'll stop now.
Okay, sir, the green. You have your hand up.
Alan DeAngelis, 23 Candlelight Lane.
Okay.
I only have one question. Based on what you just said about possibly going from the dry well solution to tying into sewers. How long will it take to get it approved? And how long would it take to implement, assuming that it's approved? And I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna hold you to exactly 3 weeks, but get an idea, like, what can we expect? Basically, will it be done before town meeting?
So it sounds like there's a proposal up there that has yet to be evaluated. Is that fair?
We are currently evaluating.
Right.
So that sounds like we couldn't make a promise on that, so.
No,
We
but
don't
in
have
other
that
words, like,
answer. We don't have that answer.
No, but in other words, to do that kind of work
Yeah.
that he just proposed, how long would it take to do it? Do we know that? Did you get any kind of?
So, I mean, I think it depends, and through the chair, any sort of work really depends on what the scope is. If there was the view by the town that and our peer consultants that the proposal that they are presenting was acceptable. That's not a very complicated issue. Anything else I wouldn't want to put a guess, only because it does would require a minimal amount of engineering just to make sure we know what's going on. And realistically, the form of potentially easement going to an extreme, that would then have to be negotiated. I really wouldn't want to say on either side what a time frame is, because there's many things that could complicate it, and I'd rather have conversations now that our engineers have supportive information, and we can sit down with Angela and her engineers to sort of talk through some of these things. This project has gone on for a long time. The amount of staff and engineers, probably on both sides, has significantly changed from when they were first in front of the town. So part of this is also just making sure we can do our due diligence and making sure that it's a viable solution going forward. I'd hope in a couple weeks that the path forward is clear and can identify what that looks like. And just like the conversation for the original one, for Duhamel, it is possible that things don't line up for annual town meeting in May. But we literally would have to be right back at this point in 3 to 4 months, certifying something's complete for fall town meeting.
So that basically what you're saying is this solution that you just laid out is more complicated than the dry well solution.
Correct.
And therefore will take more time.
Correct.
And therefore more review, et cetera, et cetera.
And
more complicated, so it's more complicated. All right.
Correct. I mean, the benefit is that we're focused on a singular issue.
Right.
And the best way to resolve.
And as residents, like there's homeowners, we want that because we don't want to assume any responsibility. Like if your town doesn't accept it, we don't want the responsibility either. So this is, so it sounds to me like this is not likely to get accepted on May town meeting. Not likely.
So what we're doing tonight, okay, is this board will look at it and either give a recommendation to recommend, not recommend, or take no action.
Right.
And I think I would like to hear if there's another opinion in the audience
I think I'd like to hear one or two more, as well. Sir, you were trying to speak earlier, and I'd love to hear your
I was
conversation.
in the first part of the development. Now, and we didn't at least I didn't understand that there was gonna be a company, an association that we had to pay a fee to every month to take care of the streets and the lights and stuff like that. And meanwhile, we're probably paying the same percentage tax-wise to Bellingham for the size of my house and my property, so it seems like we're paying for the people. Now, I'm not blaming the town, but to me, and I'm not anybody that knows anything about the developments. Why did the town let this developer build these things and not abide by whatever laws the town was supposed to?
So this project, if I remember correctly, was a 40B, which meant it didn't come in front of this planning board, which meant that you couldn't hold the applicant and the developer to the same rigid standards that would typically be involved with a development plan. Okay, and we did have another project by the same developer come in to present to us. And residents from your project came to our meeting trying to give testimony about the developer that we couldn't allow because we were focused on that project. But we had a number of people coming in enough that we knew that it was two separate projects and we had to treat them as two separate. But because it was a 40B and not the standard development plan, we weren't involved. Okay, we didn't get to do stormwater review. We didn't get to do all this stuff. It was more handled through the technical process with the state than with us. And yes, it was in front of the zoning board. I bet you guys were going to the zoning board meetings at that point, if I'm gonna guess, because that's where the meetings were. So I hear what you're saying, sir, about needing this to progress. I'm concerned about the flooding and things that the residents have been going through for a long period.
Too, because last year, there was a problem that somebody called and said they had a sewer backup.
In your development?
Huh?
In your development?
Well, yes, because my development, as soon as you get to my street, Bellingham isn't, that's where Bellingham's responsibility ends. Because whenever you guys plow, well, I don't want to say you guys, but whenever DPW does, they get the corner right before my block and they turn left. They don't come down my streets. So we have to pay money to this other people to make sure the lights are on. Streets are on. Public areas are done. You know, it was reasonable when I moved in. Now, I grew up in a city, so I have no experience in a lot of these things in New York. You know, when I paid my taxes in Queens and New York City, I took care of everything, sewer, the water, the whole 9 yards. Anyway, now they tripled the price of what we're paying on a monthly basis. You get it done, and I'm not sure, but I should say, they probably haven't made a contract for next year, which is even gonna increase it more. I mean, it's just very frustrating.
Ma'am?
Hi, my name is
Identify yourself.
Anna, 14 Celestial Circle. And I agree with the gentleman there that when we all purchased, most of us purchased our properties, we were told that the $43 that we were going to be paying was until the development was completed, and it was for the maintenance of the roads, the lights, and public spaces. Since this issue with not being able to accept the streets, the HOA doubled, claiming that it was because the developer was doing some of the services for free. I believe that this issue is an issue that is between the developer not doing what they were supposed to be doing and the town's right to enforce what they needed to do. And we are in the middle, and we are being made to pay an association that we don't need. We don't need them to clean the snow, because we pay taxes for that. We don't need them to clean the streets, which they don't. The town does that. We don't need them to clean public spaces. We really don't have public spaces. We can cut that little strip of grass ourselves. So we really don't need an association for that. I understand that the trust was created to maintain what is called rain gardens, but what are they maintaining? Nothing. They haven't, the houses that have rain gardens don't have, no one has been there. So, you know, all that financial burden is being put on the residents. And some residents that, you know, it affects your mortgage. Because when you bought the property, it was only this amount, now it doubles, but your earnings may not have doubled during that time. So I propose that it be released, that we get released from that, and the town deals directly with the culprit, who is the developer. You know, it's their problem to solve it. And I don't know if the town has fines that they can impose for not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But if they're not, maybe implement some fines. You know, if you said, I'm gonna do this, and these are the steps I'm gonna do. And if you don't do that by a certain time, you're gonna pay the town this much, because the town needs to take care of that now. That's what I propose. You know, release the residents from the burden of the HOA or trust that there may be, and deal directly with who is supposed to have done the job. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Okay, Bill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I've been on the board a long time. Technically, this is the first time you've had a meeting on this. However, they have tried to have the street accepted numerous times. Has not been approved by DPW. We tried to work with the builder through DPW many times to resolve this. What we're trying to do is look out for the best interest of the town by not accepting the street until it meets our requirement. If we were to accept a street that needed additional work, the burden would shift to the town. Unfortunately, right now, I feel bad for you because some neighbors have called me. That burden is falling on you. By not accepting it and pushing, I don't want to use pushing it off, but working with the developer so it's in a position where it's acceptable. We've been shifting the burden to you as opposed to the town. And that's what our job is, unfortunately.
And I believe we understand that, you know, and we are grateful that the town is protecting us, at least I am. You know, but there's gotta be something that, you know, some relief for the residents. You know, it cannot just be the burden.
We've been paying a fee for at least 3 years because the town wouldn't accept, I believe it was 3 years ago, the first time they went up for town acceptance? Road acceptance?
I'm not quite sure
I
as far as the
think it
first
was
time.
3 years ago. So all this time, we've been paying money, and as she mentioned, it went up considerably because the town couldn't accept the roads because this issue was still outstanding and has been outstanding. So it's come out of all of our pockets. That's not good. And you got 100 people So this is not directed to you guys.
No.
There's 100 people. And I think they have things called class action suits, etc. You can't be doing this to people. You can't be taking their money over and over and over again.
Provide no services.
And not doing anything to solve the problem that the town has so eloquently outlined for you. So please, I'm at the end of my rope, and I think I speak for others here, including a bunch of them who are not here. So this needs to be resolved. And Angela, you need to get back to your folks and get this straightened out, because I'm telling you, I've had enough. And I am ready. And you don't want to piss me off. That's all I could say. If you don't believe me,
Okay,
ask Alex.
okay, so at this point, there's a process that the town is trying to work with this developer who has been here, who admittedly has taken a long time to resolve problems. I think you mentioned that earlier. So I think we've got, there's people working on this. Okay, so I think that we've got the town peer review engineer on the line right now that we've heard. We've heard from town staff that they're trying to work with the developer. We're trying to work to get some resolution in there. There is a bond still, I imagine, in place that
Yes.
will or will not. We would rather have the problem solved. Is what we're really trying to do. Ma'am, I think I'm gonna let you be the last person.
Okay.
Okay. But if you could introduce yourself, stand up, I don't think.
My name is Wendy Shea. I live at 9 Candlelight Lane. I've been there 9 years, paying this fee.
Yep.
We literally feel like we have handcuffs because they can raise it how whatever they want it to be, because then they'll put a lien on our house if we don't pay it. Who's gonna hold Thafford to the fire? Because we had back in January, there's like no answer, there's no timeline. This could go on for 4 or 5 years now. Like there's no answer. Like take the bond, let the town fix it, because they are not gonna do it. They have not done anything. We don't see anybody going around looking at the ground or looking at any solutions, coming up with anything.
And it's costing us money.
Yes.
Every month.
I mean,
100 people.
For us to it's $1,200 a year right now for every house in both developments. And they barely do anything. They used to at least mow the grass. They don't do that anymore. And yes, we had a tough winter, but the past few have not been. They don't clean the streets. I don't know what they're doing with the money. And it's just like, it's not ending.
And more than anything else, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I feel like, I think it's at the point, because again, I've been there 9 years, that take that money, the town fix it, because they're gonna do it a lot faster than Thafford ever will. That's.
Okay.
I'm sorry, real quick, how long ago was it discovered that this pipe was emptying into the wetlands? How long ago?
Oh, well, the pipe was installed before the street was installed. Current personnel at the company became aware that this pipe existed in 2024. I think it was like April of 2024.
But you've been through several rounds of engineers on this.
Yeah, we went to Concom and discussed it with them, discussed solutions with them, couldn't come up with a solution. Concom just kind of put their hands up and said that there's really no harm that's being created by this pipe right now, other than, what town council brought up was that it's a private drain line crossing what would be a public way. So the Conservation Commission was not dissatisfied with the condition of that isolated wetland with this drainage being contributed to it, and they just.
Really? They really didn't care. They were dumping in open space. Wow.
Well, it's a wetland, that's your groundwater being deposited into a wetland. It's not.
I'll just leave it at that. Yeah,
There wasn't- there
that's your
wasn't-
statement.
There was an order of conditions on the property at the time. If they had an issue with it, they could have issued an enforcement order, but they didn't.
All right, so at this point, okay, we've got. I think what we need to do is get. An action going forward. As far as right now, we're being asked to either recommend. Street acceptance. Do we have all the documents that we need at this point to even recommend this? Or not recommend this?
This is the outstanding issue that, I think we're gonna have a better direction over the next week and a half as far as what the solution is gonna be. I would just ask that we provide the planning board with an update on the 14th. The reason is that the next meeting after that is the day after town meeting. So you won't be meeting, you'll only be meeting one more time before town meeting to provide the select board with input. If this is if there's a workable solution, I'd rather provide the board with an update and, like with the select board providing them with an update as far as what is realistic. So
this one member would like to see progress made on this. And that one member being me is the only reason, and I'm gonna speak for me only.
Yeah.
The only reason why I would consider, other than the residents taking it on the chin, is the fact that we can make progress towards resolving the problem by continuing it.
Mhm.
So, I think that's where I stand.
Now, what do you mean by continuing?
Yeah. Well, I think what Joe was just asking for was that we continue it to the 14th with trying to make progress with the engineers from Fadford, our peer review, town staff, and then come back to come back with progress on the 14th.
So no recommendation now, when action, no action.
Continue it till the 14th until we get more input on what's going on. And I think that, Joe, is that your recommendation?
that's my recommendation. One, it sort of holds both town staff, our feet to the fire, as well as their feet to the fire to try to resolve the issue. Everyone, I think, on the town side, we want to be able to resolve it because we do receive the emails, we receive the calls, just like elected members do.
Yeah.
We do understand, that this has been on multiple town meetings. This really needs to be put to bed.
Okay, I would like to see a solution that works for everybody. So that's why I'm willing to, this one member is willing to go forward on this, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the board. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
Yeah, I do.
Bill, go ahead.
I think this developer has a track record. We could have a solution in place on the 14th on paper.
That was.
How do we know when it gets done?
That's a whole nother question. I want to make progress between now and the 14th.
Well, I mean, that's one of the realistic things is that, there is leverage that we have with the bond that is being held.
Okay.
So I think there's financial incentive, but also, like there is leverage on our side that, we're able to make progress. And I think there's also a level of determination on both sides to try to identify that solution. We heard, Rob and I back in January, the concerns of the residents as far as them paying the increased fees. There is, for each property, for this development, there is a homeowners association that was put in place. But there also are mechanisms within the homeowners association that they are able to influence what happens. And the approvals from the town did require the homeowners association to be maintained for maintenance of the rain gardens. Doesn't need to be much, but the individual rain gardens were a component of this development. that it does handle some of the roof, runoff, but then also surface drainage and, was part of the zoning board's comprehensive permit. So there's an element that, all the owners within the homeowners association, will have a voice in the association as far as how, even after, hopefully we bring this across the line for street acceptance, what the role and how they manage, and also, quite frankly, just govern that homeowners association.
One question, if I may. Can the planning board recommend contingent on completion of the work? So in other words, when you come up on the 18th and they say, okay, we're gonna do the work, we dug the hole and it'll be done by the 28th, the town meeting, whenever it is. Like, can you recommend contingent on that, or is that not part of your process?
My feeling, sir. Only expression from my father. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
So I'm here to protect you.
Yeah.
I wanna make sure that gets done when we approve. I
Right.
don't want any contingencies. It's been going on too long with contingencies. I wanna see it get done. If we have we will address it more on the 18th to see what we can do. But we're trying to look out for your best interest.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I didn't know if that was a part of the.
They're here because they have a financial interest in being.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so. Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you all very much.
I'll leave it at that. But,
I appreciate it.
That's good.
I understand.
okay.
I'm just curious, because I've never been part of a homeowners association. It sounds like it's not a bad thing, but is that made up of folks that live within the community?
Up until this time, it has only been under the control of one trustee who was an employee of Fabric Development or South County Realty, whatever it is. So up until this time, we haven't had any other trustees. And now I guess they've solicited for people to, throw their name in the hat.
Because I would think, and again, I might be talking out of the side of my head, but I would think that something like that should be made up of people within the community.
You would think.
Yes, but hasn't been until this time, and there are a number of reasons, which I won't get into, but it is what it is, and it needs to change.
Okay, so at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask for a continuance to May 14th on this topic. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Steve, and we'll take the vote. Steve, aye. Bill, aye.
Matty, aye.
Okay, so 4-0, and we're gonna continue with the hope that there's progress moving forward to solve this problem.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And that's all we ask is solve the problem. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Keep coming in. We hope to see you all on the 14th. What? Yeah, okay, totally. All right, we do have some items still on the agenda that we need to get to. I'm seeing that we've got, a big agenda on May 14th, but besides that, let's go. Hi, if we could take the conversation out so that we get finished. We want to see you on the 14th, though. Thank you.
We'll be here about that. Can I just show you something real quick?
Well,
No, never mind. No, it's
actually,
okay.
we've already closed.
No, that's fine. I just wanna, I have thousands of pictures of my horror show. And I seem unorthodox and a pain in the butt.
No, we want to hear from you, sir.
I'm very unrefined, but I do appreciate what you folks do.
We're trying to solve that problem. Thank you.
But, thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe.
Have a nice, nice night, sir.
Take care.
All right.
Come
so-
on, Peg.
So we've got some town warrant items that we need to get to tonight. Joe, would you like to walk us through, which one would you like to start with? I think there's three of them.
Yes, let me.
So these are coming from the bylaw review committee, if I'm not mistaken, which Stephen's a member and I'm a member of that along with Liz.
Yeah. Okay, so, I'm just gonna pull the first one.
And again, these are ones that we're looking to recommend, not recommend, or no action. Is what it,
So first. Whoops. It's the wrong one. Okay, so I'm pulling up, the first one is the article on use table amendments. So I'm just gonna put this on the screen. I don't know if you had seen in the Dropbox, there was a red line version as far as changes to the table. Town council had taken a look at all of the articles. They didn't have any recommendations on this or any comments. But in talking to the chair, it was identified that there was an error in this document under marijuana cultivator over here on the right side of the column under in the industrial
commercial
district.
uses,
It says no, and it sounds like the existing language was PB. Now, just reminding the board, the underlines are additions. Strike through are deletions. I'll just be confirming with town council. The fact that there was a Scrivener's error for marijuana cultivators under industrial identifying as no, because it's not proposed as a change. Really, the existing language should remain, which is the PB. That's the only thing in this article that, and again, it's right here. My mouse is, unfortunately, this is PDF, it's selecting the whole thing.
just to add a little color to that. We talked about that in our group, in our meeting, and that it was a typo that needed to get fixed. I guess it never got fixed. And this is the Williams Way exception. When marijuana issues came up with the state, they designated Williams Way as a cultivating place, and there is existing businesses up there that fall under this. So it is really a typo. If you look at the current use table right now online, that's a PB in there, and it's just a typo at this point for us at this point. So we'll get that fixed.
I don't even think, I don't even think as far as a motion for a recommendation that the board needs to highlight it, because it's not like you proposed it in error. It just is a Scrivener's error, and we can correct it administratively, because, essentially the motion is gonna be that you make the following changes, additions being underlined and deletions being strike through. So it wouldn't capture that. So do you wanna do motions at the end, or do you wanna handle them individually?
Why don't we handle those individually? Is there any questions on the any discussion on the use table?
No.
With none, I would entertain a recommendation to recommend at town meeting to approve the changes.
Pursuant to any Scrivener
With
changes.
with the changes that were just discussed.
So moved.
I'll second
Okay, made by Marty, seconded by Bill. Marty, vote.
Marty, aye.
Bill, aye.
it. Bill, I.
Steve, aye. So that is approved.
The second article being amendments to Article 6 definitions. You have again, deletions being strike through, additions being underline, and I believe you should have a document that basically is an amended version that town council had submitted. There's no edits that are identified, but there were questions. And the first ones are right here on the screen. Where under animal kennel, daycare, or training, the term or other domestic non-farm animals, the question was raised, are these defined? You know, and the other two comments asked if that was defined. Not being part of that, and, you know, not having it defined other ways, you know, is there the potential for a different interpretation? Maybe, but I think, you know, because of the fact that, I've not heard of chicken daycares or trainings, I think there may be a customary acceptance as far as what that really means. And, you know, can always, be, clarified at another town meeting if people on the bylaw committee basically said, well, we've been reviewing this language and we don't necessarily think that this would be interpreted in such a broad way that we need to define what other domestic non-farm animals. So sorry, can't do chickens, parakeets, parakeet training and daycare.
I'm gonna open one tomorrow.
But how long they live? Maybe that's a niche.
I'm not gonna make no.
I'm not gonna say a word.
Okay, not gonna say where. All right, so is anybody uncomfortable with what the actual language is, or would I take a recommendation? I'm gonna ask you guys are both on it. I mean, I'm comfortable. Honestly, I have not read it. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go by the two of you being on the board and doing what's right. I mean, I see the strikers. I wish I had known prior to last week that this is up, so I actually could have read it, but I didn't. I didn't have time. So I'm going to go by your guys' recommendations that
I'm comfortable with
comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable. I think Marty Buffett, you know, has made a good point. So,
Jared. It's been a long night, guys. Right now, it's past 10 o'clock.
I'm fine.
You're fine with this? CJ? Steve, Patrick, any questions? Okay, then I'd take a motion to recommend town council or town meeting the approval of the definition changes. Steve, would you like to make the motion? Okay, the second.
I'm Jimmy.
So moved. All right, and we'll start with the vote.
Steve, I.
Bill,
I. Marty, I. Okay, so it passes 4-0. And Joe's our third one.
Yes, the drive-through amendments. So on this one, there were a few more questions, and again, not knowing what was discussed by the zoning bylaw review committee, especially when it comes to some of these defined terms, they may or not be an issue, but you know, when legal counsel is really reviewing it for form and probably for the first time not being part of the conversation. You know, the first comment, what is the approving authority? She basically is identifying within this bylaw. It doesn't specify. Now it could be someplace else. So, yeah, she says, I don't see this defined anywhere in the zoning bylaw. I don't know what we Phil or Steve had discussions as far as approval authority.
Yeah, we would assume that this was going, and it's an assumption, but I'm trying to find it, that it would go through the planning board with just looking to see what if it fits into the tables here.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, we're in the tables. This would be through.
that was Rod's understanding.
Yeah.
What he wanted this to develop.
Yeah.
We almost did this a couple of years.
Let's see.
Accessory usage, section. Storage. So this would be coming up with, this would be part of a development plan. So if it was part of a, if it was a bank situation with a drive-through, it would be coming, like, for example, with the Hartford Avenue. The drive-through would be part of the development plan with that going through. If it was a separate entity, say like a Bank of America type situation down at Quick's Corner, we probably need a development plan too for that as well. I think that was probably the understanding. That was the thought that was going through. I'm just trying to, where is it on the use tables? So banking was defined.
So this falls under Article 10, parking and loading requirements. As it was adding a new section, like 35.
I mean, the new building, like I said, Crooks, that's an ATM, but the new one on Hartford Ave, but then even if it was an existing structure, adding a drive-through in is a major modification. Because now you're getting a traffic issue, and so that, I would think it would be a.
Well, the standalone one was, the concern was that we have areas that are like the business one, business two, and in locations where you got houses next, even an industrial house next to an industrial area. So with the mixed pieces there, I don't know that she's got. So it's got drive-through. Oh, wait a minute, here it is on the use table we just went through. Drive-through facilities comes under the B2 and industrial with the planning board. So under the ones we just looked through is the drive-through facilities. That's coming up on the commercial uses. As the planning board would have it would not be allowed in agricultural, residential, multi-use, and B1, but it is allowed in B2 and in industrial, and the planning board is the authority. In the use table.
Proposed use table.
So that is the use table is the mechanism.
Okay.
I think we're okay there.
There's nothing grandfathered.
No,
If it's a pre-existing, if pre-existing, it would already be there.
Okay.
So you wouldn't, I mean,
Because
if they were coming
the
in,
Bank of America
yeah.
is more now in residential. I'm just wondering how that will.
Well, if it's already there, if they came in for a modification type
Yep.
thing, then it would be held against these standards.
Okay.
But if it was an existing that was not looking for something,
It would be covered.
is that your understanding, Joe?
If it was pre-existing, non-conforming structure, they'd be going into the ZBA for a section 6 finding, which basically is a determination whether or not it's more the change is more or less detrimental.
Okay.
So I think it would fall under this because it would be an existing drive-through. So they just would be dealing with modification under that existing scenario. If it was a standalone bank adding that, absolutely, this would apply.
Okay.
What were the other concerns from town council?
There was questions about the landscape buffer required on all sides of the property with the drive-through or just the actual side with the drive-through. There's a question about the size of plantings, like at a minimum, the plantings must consist of evergreen trees at a minimum of 6 feet in height. You know, is that at time of planting or at maturity? You know, realistically, I'd imagine there was the image as far as, you know, 6-foot pine or arborvitae, so that you're not putting a little 2.5 little foot dwarf,
That would
size.
Yeah, you'd want it there at 6 feet when it started.
So, well, it does say when planted, 6 feet in height planted. So that's talking about planting it at a 6 foot tree.
Well, that the
At
planting,
beginning, Not
I mean-
full. It has to be minimum of 6.
yeah, I mean, that's where
Yeah,
it would be cleaner to say, you know,
6 feet in
at,
height
at
at
time of
planting.
planting.
At time of
But,
planting.
you know, it's, I think it's one of those things that it's like, you know, is this good enough and you cleaned it up at some other time, or do you include it as a small change as part of the recommendation to be done as a motion? You know, or the other option is to say, hey, wait until fall town meeting and clean and rectify all these issues.
Well, let me ask you, what's the, cleanest, most effective way would you'd recommend?
So, because it says, at a minimum, the plantings must consist of evergreen trees, I mean, quite honestly, evergreen trees, comma, minimum of 6 feet in height, comma, planted at intervals that will create a contiguous. That would sort of separate out that at the time of planting.
So
If there's no other changes that are needed, you could have that as an amendment within the motion. But because this whole thing, this is a new section, so you don't have that. So this is dropping in as is. So you could,
So we don't have any, right? We don't have anything that covers this stuff in the bylaw. This is better than nothing.
so, I mean, but that's where also the other side of it is like, if this is the opinion of the board. When you go in front of zoning, and this is gonna be potentially a long long town meeting. My experience, if it's minor changes that are very clear, town meeting will adopt it. If there's confusing changes, it's better just to pass over it. Here, I think, you know, you could either keep it the same way or basically say, you know, we want to make a fine, we're approving the article as on file with the town clerk with the following change to section A. And so that it will read as follows.
If we
That
left,
could be very straightforward, or if you just leave it in, and then you just take care of it at the next town meeting.
Here's my feeling.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long town meeting.
Yep.
Just leave it in. When you do changes from the floor, it's more voting,
Exactly.
questions,
Yep.
more chance for something to happen.
Yeah.
and we're adding new.
but let me ask
So
you.
it's a
if
better
that was
than-
just Left in.
It's better than as is nothing.
If this came in front of the planning board, wouldn't we then have the option at that point to say, that, they
This
have
is
to
what we meant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because we do that, when we talk about landscape, we decide at that time what should go in, how it should go in, what height, couldn't we just leave that? And then if it comes in front of the board, we say, by the way, 6 foot at time of planting.
That's what I'd say we leave it.
The
I'll
other.
take one person.
I'm comfortable with the way it is now.
The other thing is she highlighted, the following section, so that sentence, a minimum 6 foot height, solid and opaque fence or wall at a location and of a design material deemed sufficient by the planning board with no required vegetation width shall be provided. That's what you had. She had it, deemed sufficient by the planning board with no required vegetation width required.
So that's if you put a solid fence in there, you may not need to you don't need to put the vegetation along with it. And this is one that there's 3 options, right? Just scroll
Yeah.
down just a little bit. So there's 3 options when you do this, and one of the, pick one of the 3 that qualify. So I'm okay with that too.
Do we have the option to do both?
Well, it's by this, no, it says you can do one of the 3.
The
And then
applicant,
it's defined by the three,
yeah,
A, B, or C.
the applicant could come in with A, B, or C, and that
Okay.
would work.
Now we
Or-
could ask the developer if it's in front of us, like, be nice to have some plantings in front of that fence too.
I'm
Or-
looking down the road,
Yeah,
we're gonna have
For-
a
for-
project coming to us
For this,
fairly soon.
for this with the language required, probably should have been there for the. Because this is a requirement of the board, so we wouldn't, it means that we wouldn't require vegetation. Not, the shall be provided is structurally, I think what she has is cleaner, but again, you know the intention. To go in and just do a singular amendment on town meeting floor, because this is already on file with the town clerk. It's like, it's cleaner, but there's, you know, the intent, it's clear what the intent is.
yeah,
Okay.
It's like, yeah, if then you're like, if we want to go back and make the change under A, then you make the change under B as well. And it's just a housekeeping article for a future town meeting.
Okay,
It's,
I'm fine.
and that, there was one other where, the width of existing natural vegetation is at least 20 feet. She posed the question, unless it abuts a residential property, question mark. If so, I suggest it be specified. This is in a section that talks about natural vegetation. Maybe used where existing natural landscape will remain during post-construction. So say a no disturb buffer. And it basically is saying that if there's an existing buffer of at least 20 feet, that it doesn't need to be supplemented with additional plantings. That's, at least that's how I read it. Not knowing how that was intended. And she was just specifying, asking a question, unless it abuts a residential property, does that change it?
I have one question.
it's almost the width of this, 20 feet. It's a little less.
On these bylaws,
Mhm.
is the planning board allowed to strengthen a bylaw with a condition?
So that's a really good, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean what I just did. That's a really good question as far as this buffer option may be used where existing natural landscaping areas will remain during post-construction. Anticipation may be following. I'm looking to see if it's an and. Because it's not a or, it's both.
Right,
And the existing vegetation includes a healthy stand of trees or shrubs that will be maintained in perpetuity. So my first thought was if it was just existing and it was 20 feet, but let's say it was all vertical deciduous trees and you had no understory. I think this here saying that your C, this buffer may be used where existing natural vegetation will remain. I think you'd probably be able to say, but it's inadequate for buffering materials, and that you need to supplement it with rhododendrons, things that are mixed height. I think you have that flexibility. This is basically saying if you had a stand of already established evergreens, along with this deciduous, that is that going to be fine that if they left it with the no cut, that's in perpetuity, some sort of protection that they don't touch and remove at anything. I think that inherently means it actually needs to be of good quality.
okay. I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it. And so as you said,
we'll have something coming up, but that whole lot's gonna get leveled. Not hard for them.
Yeah.
And we're already doing landscaping.
This one, yeah, this one's.
Yeah. I think
All right.
your reference.
So
All right, so at this point, we just got this one, so I would, entertain a motion to recommend this one to town meeting. This is the, bylaw of drive-through regulations. This motion made by Steve, seconded by Bill.
No,
Steve?
Aye. Go on.
Bill, aye.
Marty, I.
Okay, so that passes for nothing. This was a public hearing. We didn't read the notice. Would it be worth going back or did?
I'd read it into the record.
Read it into the record?
Yep.
Marty, would you mind?
Public hearing notice of Bellingham Planning Board pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, and the Planning Board Procedural Rules, Section 2.1. The Bellingham Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 23rd, 2026, commencing at 7 p.m. in the Arcan Meeting Room at the Dennis C. Fran Municipal Center, 10 Mechanic Street, Bellingham, Mass. To consider the following proposed amendments to the Bellingham zoning bylaws, ZBL, which was submitted for the 2026 annual town meeting warrant. Amended zoning bylaws, Article 6, definition, Section 240-32, terms defined. Amend the town zoning bylaws, Article 6, Section 240-32 by inserting, deleting, and or amending various definitions contained in Section 240-32 entitled terms defined. Amend zoning bylaws, Article 5, general use regulations, Section 240-31, use regulation schedule. Amend the town zoning bylaws, Article 5, Section 240-31 by inserting, deleting, and or amending uses, including separating of columns for zoning districts B1 and B2 contained in the section 240-31 entitled Use Regulation Schedule. Amend zoning bylaws by adding Article 31 drive-through regulations. Amend the town zoning bylaws by adding a new Article 31, Section 240-65 entitled Drive-through Facilities that include requirements for vehicular circulation, dimensional requirements, landscape buffering, and screening, and other requirements such as but not limited to lighting, message board, and displays, dumpster location, and hours of operations. A complete copy of the text of proposed amendments to the Bellingham zoning bylaw is on file with the town clerk and the planning board office in the Dennis C. Fran Municipal Center, 10 Mechanic Street in Bellingham, Mass. During regular municipal center business hours. For questions, please contact the Land Use Department at 508-657-2893.
Okay, just to dot our i's and cross our t's, I would accept the motion to recommend to town meeting the three items, the definitional changes, the updates to the use tables, and number 3, the drive-through regulation changes. So, all right, so we got a motion by Bill. Steve, would you like to second it?
Oh. Once the public notice was read, do you need to take a motion to open the public meeting?
Yes. Okay, let's take a motion to open the public meeting.
Am I wrong?
I think we covered that. I think we
Okay.
just didn't, do the
Reading
reading of the
Get it out
notice.
of order, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay, and you don't want to have something come back on it.
All right, so back to recommending to town meeting the bylaw changes for the definition changes, the updates of the use table and the drive-through bylaw changes. And we'll take one motion that was made by Bill, seconded by Steve, and we'll take the vote starting with Steve. Steve, aye.
Go on.
Bill, aye.
Marty, I.
So that passes 4-0. And the last thing on our agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from April 9th and
That I did read and I didn't see any, though.
I read it, I didn't see anything. Does anybody have any changes? Okay, then I would accept the motion to approve the April 9th meeting minutes. Made by Steve, second by Bill. And we'll start the voting by Steve. Till I.
Marty, I.
Okay, so that passes for the dip. And we will take a motion to end our meeting tonight. Anybody like to make that motion?
Make a motion to close the
Meeting tonight.
the April, yeah, the meeting tonight.
Okay, made by Marty, seconded by, seconded by Steve. Vote starts with Marty.
Marty, I.
Bill, aye.
Go on.
Great, we are done, and we'll let Joe shut the recordings off.
Good night, Bellingham.
Be done with.
Literally.